What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the David Carson Show. This one should be interesting. We're going to cover our 10 stories, and we're also going to be watching the Trump surrendering live. He just landed in Atlanta. He just got off of his plane and went into his limo. But yeah, not much to see right now, so we'll dive into the stories. Today, we are covering, obviously, the Trump surrendering. Also, protesters gather ahead of Trump's surrender in Georgia. Trump and Tucker show smash 176 million views. And Vivek Ramaswamy declared debate winner. Donald Trump Jr. praises Vivek Ramaswamy debate performance and slams Ron DeSantis. Putin breaks silence on deadly plane crash. Trump shakes up legal team ahead of surrender to authorities in Georgia. Rudy Giuliani speaks out after arraignment and mugshot. Biden could face investigation over response to Hawaii wildfires. Bud Light finally apologizes for the Dylan Mulvaney debacle. James O'Keefe is being investigated by a Democrat DA, and Jordan Peterson explodes in response to his court case to re-educate him. Lots of very, very interesting stuff. But yeah, let's dive into the first story about the protesters gathering for Trump's surrender. Let's play a clip.
It is 10 a.m. in Atlanta, where supporters of former President Donald Trump are gathering outside the jail where he is set to surrender later on today. It comes as federal and local law enforcement are stepping up security in the area. So CBS News Homeland Security and Justice reporter Nicole Skanga is joining us now from just outside of the jail. And we can see the supporters all lined up right behind you there, Nicole. What is the situation like down there now? How's the city of Atlanta and the county jail preparing for the former president's arrival?
Well, good morning. Media still outnumbering protesters here in Atlanta outside the Fulton County Jail. But there are dozens of protesters, some of them traveling from as far as Tennessee, Florida.
Let's cut in here real quick. Trump is headed to the courthouse here from the airport. But let's get back to the story.
To right here in Georgia to support the former president. I spoke with many protesters earlier this morning who were in Miami for his indictment and arraignment there and who have showed up today, some of them sleeping in the parking lot nearby so they could get a front row seat to history being made today as the former president surrenders in front of the jail. Now, behind me, you can see some of the law enforcement footprint here. The Fulton County Sheriff's Office in full force, also U.S. Secret Service personnel here today, and the Atlanta Police Department, which is supporting the efforts of the Fulton County Sheriff's Office here. This street right now still seeing some traffic, but we do expect it to close later today. We also expect the airspace to close. FAA putting out a temporary no-fly zone between 6:45 p.m. and 9 p.m., which is roughly when we expect the former president to surrender here.
Nicole, do you have a ballpark figure of how many people are expected to show up today? And we're
it's
seeing
insane
a lot of
how they're doing this indictment and stuff. Look at, because it's the former president. They have to go because of Secret Service and have a no-fly zone and everything. It's insane.
Signs behind you, but are there going to be any counter protesters, any anti-Trump folks there too?
There already have been.
Yeah, it's a good question, Omar. Law enforcement has not forecasted how many people they expect, but they are prepared for hundreds right now. Again, just seeing dozens of protesters here. We have seen a few counter protesters donning signs that say, lock him up. We know that Dominic Santiago is here. He was notoriously arrested in Miami.
The case. Just
for
lock him
running
up
in front of the former president's motorcade. Our colleague Graham Cates spot him earlier today in Atlanta. But right now, we should stress that these protests are peaceful. These are folks who have been to Trump rallies before, overwhelmingly supporters of former President Trump. I spoke with Mike Boatson, who told me this is his 60th Trump rally. So we are really seeing some of the more ardent supporters who are out this early.
So there's a far-right activist, Laura Loomer, who's been promoting this rally, I guess, on X, formerly known as Twitter. And she's telling everyone, make sure that you come, but be peaceful. But what can you tell us about her and her following, her influence?
Yeah, Laura Loomer, she is here. She's wearing a Trump did nothing wrong t-shirt. She's a conservative activist, controversial, considered to be on more of the fringes of the GOP, but a former congressional candidate who is within Trump's inner circle, was spotted in Bedminster just a couple of weekends back and does, speak with the former president. She's organized a number of these protests, including in Miami and in New York. And I think it's important to stress that many of the pro-Trump supporters have talked about being peaceful. There's a lot of that language in the post-January 6th environment. And, having gone to many of the Trump rallies back in 2020, I can say that there is a bit of a dampening effect that January 6th has had on some of these gatherings. And so right now, this is peaceful. We do expect it to remain peaceful, and certainly a very significant law enforcement presence on the ground
of people,
here, ensuring
or
that will
just
be the
people
case.
are more calm?
What can we expect when President Trump arrives? Kind of give us the play-by-play of the process that we're expected to see.
Yeah, the Fulton County Sheriff has said he will be treated like any other defendant. And for the most part, that is the case. But he also is the former president, right? And he has a very extensive Secret Service detail. And so the streets will close down around the jail when he comes from the airport. He will be given a quick medical evaluation, height, weight. His biometrics will be taken. He'll be fingerprinted. His irises will be scanned, as is par for the course here when they process all defendants inside of Fulton County Jail. We will see a mugshot for the first time of the former president. His mugshot will be taken. But his processing will be quick. We expect it will go down in less than an hour, and many of the hallways in the prison will be cleared as he roams around, limiting his interactions with any extraneous personnel at the jailhouse, certainly any inmates. And so we do expect that he will be in and out, that he will not be making any remarks here on the site of the Fulton County Jail.
Before we let you go, CBS News has confirmed this morning that Donald Trump is actually shaking up his legal team a little bit for this case. What are you hearing about this?
Yeah, CBS News has confirmed that Steve Sadow, who is a prominent criminal defense attorney based here in Atlanta, is now representing former President Trump in this Fulton County case. He will accompany the former president during his processing today at the jail. We have reached out to his former lead defense attorney here, Drew Feinling, but we have not yet heard back from him. As for Steve Sadow, he has represented a number of high-profile clients, many of them in the entertainment and music industry, T.I., Usher among them. He also has much experience defending in racketeering cases like the one we are seeing being waged against the former president right now. So an experienced criminal defense attorney. It is more the rule than the exception for the former president to shake up his legal team. It seems to be the case here in Georgia, too.
Nicole Scanga giving us a front row. Great reporting. Thank you very much.
Very interesting. Yeah, so the protesters were out this morning. We have Trump. He is heading to the jailhouse now. This is all just dumb, like I always say. It's interesting he's shaking up his legal team. The protesters are out there, obviously, supporting Trump, as a lot of people probably expected. But while we wait for more developments, let's check out the next story. Trump and Tucker smash 176 million views. Vivek Ramaswamy declared the debate winner. Here's a clip.
Last night, we had two explosive media events. Donald Trump's interview with Tucker Carlson, which is now around 175 million views on Twitter. And of course, we had the GOP lesser-known debates. Now, I'm being somewhat of a dick when I say that, lesser-known debates. Most people know who Nikki Haley is when it comes to politics, Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, Chris Christie. But the issue is, none of them are going to go anywhere near the White House in this session. I could be wrong about that. Ann Coulter gave an interview. She thinks DeSantis will win. There are some people saying Ron DeSantis won the debate, but few and far
between. He did better than I was expecting.
I think most people are saying Vivek Ramaswamy stole the show.
Yep.
It's interesting, though. This argument that's coming out pertaining to the debate is that Ron spoke to issues that more people are going to align with, and Vivek spoke to us. I'm not sure that matters, to be completely honest. It's all about screen time. Now, I think much of the debate was stupid, Chris Christie is just absolutely the worst. And Nikki Haley is a warmonger
Yes.
who lied about what's going on. And the only person on stage with the strength to immediately say, I will not fund war in Ukraine was Vivek Ramaswamy. But most importantly, when asked, and I got to pull up this clip, if Donald Trump is convicted, would you still support him? Vivek, bing, right away. Hand up, no question. Now, very quickly, to be fair, several of the other candidates like Nikki Haley, she puts her hands up. They're all very timid. And then, lastly, Ron DeSantis with his hand half up. You know what, man?
Ron,
I think
what
perhaps
are you
one
doing?
of my favorite moments of the debate night was when Vivek Ramaswamy said climate change was a hoax, and he got booed for it. Dude, come on. Here's what I'd say about climate change. I'm a fairly middle-of-the-road person. Y'all know me. I think humans are causing a lot of ecological problems in terms of mass pollution and overproduction. But there's a question of whether or not that leads to climate change and a warming of the planet. So the only thing I can say
and how significant it
is how I described it last night. I should probably save this, but I want to say
pollution's bad.
I don't take investment advice from scientists. You know what I mean? Like, a scientist can come out and tell me that he thinks there's going to be an earthquake, and I'll be like, I'll take that into consideration. But considering the politics at play for the most part, I take a look at what these fat cats are doing because they got a track record of making money. And I'll tell you this right now, when it comes to climate change, I do have concerns about overpopulation and toxification of environments. Cities are horrible. But I'm just going to look at what Warren Buffett is doing, what Nancy Pelosi is doing, what Obama is doing. I'm going to take investment advice based on their actions, not based on their politics. Mm-hmm. And what are they doing? Well, you know, Obama's got waterfront property in Martha's Vineyard. Banks are still financing mortgages in Miami Beach. Yeah. But I'll save that conversation for later. Let's talk about the quick hits. This is Donald Trump getting, let me just show you right now. This is the Tucker Carlson episode 19 debate night with Donald Trump. 173.4 million views. Let's refresh this and see where it's at as of right now.
This is this morning.
Is crazy.
I should look up 176.2
million views. Now, a jump like that makes sense. I pulled this up about an hour ago and I had the tab open. So maybe within like a half an hour or so, it jumped 3 million views. Makes sense. A lot of people were split between the lesser known debates and watching this interview with Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson. So it makes sense that this morning people are waking up and watching the interview. I have not watched the full thing. I've only watched selects of the Tucker Carlson interview. So I recommend you check it out. But let's first dispel the lies. Here's what they're all panicking. Oh, Fox News' ratings were in the gutter. We don't know their ratings, but how are you going to compete with 176 million views? Oh, don't worry. They're saying they're not real. Sure. Let's talk about that.
Interesting.
Trump is bragging about 100 million views for Tucker Carlson interview. Here's why that's misleading. I'll give you the short version of it. They're basically saying that these are not video views. Nobody watched the interview. They're saying that this means the post scrolled past you. Uh-huh. Yeah. I'm fine with that. 176 million people were made aware of this interview. It does not mean they watched the full thing. I would probably estimate it around maybe 20% is probably fair. Based on what I know about metrics and analytics, 20% seems to make a whole lot more sense. And that's because if you look at analytics, you'll see there's a chart that shows you watch time, 46 minutes, and then it drops down. Most people don't watch the whole thing. That's just unlikely that 176 million people watched 46 minutes. I would estimate that probably 150 million watched 2 or 3 seconds of it, meaning they scrolled past it, said, okay, and there you go. I'm totally fine with acknowledging that. That's a normal metric for anyone who understands the internet. The only people I think who are acting like this number is immaterial or irrelevant are old fogies who are used to television where they're like, here are our ratings. But let me explain something.
If it's 20%, like it's at 241 at this point. That's insane. So if 20%, that's 40 million people. Woo! It's a lot of people.
When they say, we got 30 million views on our show, according to Nielsen studies, which estimates based on an extrapolated data point, spare me. Okay? We can track real hard numbers here. So, brand recognition and acknowledgement, 176 million. Now, don't get me wrong. Some people probably scrolled past it, didn't know what it was. But when they come out and they say 20 million people watched like Big Bang Theory, they're doing this thing where they have select houses. They say they've agreed to share their data with us. So we assume, based on the 2,000 people who are watching TV, 20 million people watched this. Get out of here, dude. I just don't buy any of it. But let's talk about the debates.
So old.
Now, I do want to mention some of the Trump-Tucker interview, but I do recommend that you watch it. Tucker Carlson's scaremongering. I love this. Tucker was leading the conversation quite a bit. And I got to admit, some of these answers Trump gave were a bit meandering. They were. Tucker asks Trump if he thinks we're headed to civil war. And Trump said, there's a level of passion I don't know. There's a level of passion I've never seen, a level of hatred I've never seen. And it's probably a bad combination. He asked about Epstein, and Trump said, I don't know. He probably killed himself. You know, I don't know what to tell you. Trump's not going to come out and be the internet personality that everyone thinks he's going to be when they're on the internet. I love this one. The debate was the sideshow. Trump's debate night interview with Tucker Carlson was a taste of the chaos to come. Oh, bravo. But let's get into the nitty gritty, my friends. The debate. First, segueing from Trump into the debate, Don Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle were banned from the media spin room. Ex-president's top surrogates are turned away as Republicans bicker over former president. You know why this is targeted? Dude, I've been in the debate spin rooms. I am not a politician in any way. Hey, I'm a journalist. And they're like, come on in, buddy. So the idea that Don Jr. wouldn't be allowed in, yeah, they're playing games. Here we go.
Yep.
Who had the best debate performance? Let's get into the debate talk, my friends. Vivek Ramaswamy, 28%, followed by Ron DeSantis, 27%. This is JLP Partners conducted an online poll of 504 registered Republicans who watched Wednesday's debate. The results come with a margin of error of 4.4%. So it is hard to do these real-time polls. But I think based on the media response, the Twitter response, the trends, Vivek Ramaswamy stole the show, no question. Yeah. Take a look at this. It explains everything. What a few seconds of hand raising said about Trump's GOP. With a halting series of raised hands, candidates on the Republican debate stage illustrated the former president's hold on the party. Oh, the hold on the party. Let me play this clip for you. Here you go.
If former President Trump is convicted in a court of law, would you still support him as your party's choice? Please raise your hand if you would.
So let me just, we'll break this down. Vivek Ramaswamy, without hesitation, hand as high as hand can be. Now, I'll give some credit to Nikki Haley, who shortly after gives a half-measured, but quickly enough, some of these people, let's be nice. Ron DeSantis. Let's replay it.
Former President Trump, the party's choice. Please raise your hand if you would.
That was the most. I'm sorry, man. I know the DeSantis people are going to get mad at me. Vivek, without question, hand up. Nikki Haley, shortly after. Tim Scott. Ron DeSantis waits until people are cheering, looks around, and then halfway up.
DeSantis.
This is why people are saying Vivek stole the show. Leadership requires you to assert your position without waiting for the audience to cheer or boo. And even when booed, Vivek Ramaswamy kept pushing his position.
Let's cut in here. Audience. Trump is arriving at the jailhouse.
Really a quick procedure for the most part. There'll be the issue of posting bail. There will be the mugshot, fingerprinting, and basically that's it. And then he'll be back on his way to Hartsfield-Jackson and probably out of here within the hour, I would assume, within maybe 45 minutes to an hour.
And one thing, we are not going to be able to actually see him go into the jail because our cameras are not, to my understanding, allowed in there. But you're taking a live look right now from the skies, and we're going to go to our Ron Jones, who is at the jail right now. Ron, what are you seeing on your end?
Well, let me tell you, there is a buzz here in front of the Fulton County Jail. Just maybe about 20 minutes ago, Marjorie Taylor Greene made her way in here through cheers and jeers at the same time, but she was here talking to some of her supporters as she moved her way through the crowd.
Guys,
she
Mike.
is possibly still here right now, and I'm anticipating, as I'm looking at the video along here with you, that she's going to be there to greet the former president as well. They sang "God Bless America" with some of her supporters too, and so she has a lot of support. She also on her.
And it looks like that motorcade is now pulling up.
They just gave up on him.
The jail. We wanted to cut in here because there was a little bit of lag with audio, but we wanted to show you and just bring you all here right now. 11 Alive Sky Tracker bringing you that aerial video of the motorcade pulling up. It's now come to a complete stop, so we can expect the former president to get out and make his way in the jail. Jeff, as you were saying, this could potentially be a quick process.
Sheriff Pat Labat has said that he would treat Mr. Trump like any other person who comes through the jail for this process, and that there would be no difference there. But there is obviously a huge difference in that he is going to be sequestered from everybody else in that facility, and he will be moving at a very, very fast pace. Joe Ripley is outside the jail right now. Joe, it's all yours. What are you seeing?
He's broke too. Let's get back to
all right, we're having a few technical problems.
Right? It's not. I'm not saying like they're trying to manipulate people. I'm saying you cannot be swayed by an audience of people who are the top tier political elites. Tell me who sits in a debate. I've been to these debates. It is not your salt of the earth working class people.
Right.
Some, don't get me wrong, some people come, regular working class people, but it's mostly politicos, super connected, super involved people who show up to these debates in person. Funny story, I was at the GOP debate, I think it was in 2016, one of them, and apparently some far leftist had a female toy, adult toy, in a bag that they were intending to throw. And so security was stopping anybody who had bags or backpacks. And I was walking through the hall, press pass and everything, and they're like, "We need to check your bag." I'm like, "Do it to it, buddy. Just had a camera in it." I'm like, "Just camera." And they were like, "Okay." And then it was really funny. I was like, "Is something going on?" Is there like, well, they were like, somebody came in here with an adult, they didn't say adult female toy. They used the actual word for it. And then we started laughing. And I was like, "All right, thanks for your work, dudes." And they started laughing and walked off. I thought that was really funny. But anyway, here's what the prediction markets have to say. Now Vivek Ramaswamy was up yesterday. Now he's down, but he is still holding firm in second place. During the GOP debate, Vivek actually dropped down to third place. Ron DeSantis jumped up, and that was surprising to me. Vivek had quick answers, leadership. His hand was right up in the air anytime he was asked that question. They said, "Will you cut funding for Ukraine?" Look at this one. Do I have the tweet here? When asked if you will support Trump if convicted, Vivek Ramaswamy without hesitation raises his hand. And, okay, so I had another tweet. I pulled up the wrong one. They said, would you, it was asked in such a weird way. It was confusing. They were like, would you not, if you would not support continued funding for Ukraine, raise your hand. And it's like, wait, I would not support funding. Vivek, immediately, hand up. Take a look at this. Jack Posobiec says the difference between a hand raised and a limp wrist. And there is Vivek, hand held high. I do think it's funny, too, because like when you're wearing those suits, it's hard to like lift your hand as high as you can. And Ron DeSantis, half measure.
Yeah.
A lot of people are saying that Ron came out weak and ineffective. I got to be honest with you.
He did better than I was
expecting. Ron DeSantis
expecting.
had some excellent answers.
Yeah, so did I.
But it was A tier, B tier. The rest of the field I thought was, I'm sorry, just worthless. And the reason why I didn't even want to cover this was bullied into it. Now, people wanted to see it, I guess, and that's what it is. But the reason I didn't want to cover it, dude, Nikki Haley arguing with Mike Pence is irrelevant to you, to me, and to anyone else. Sorry,
Mike Pence being there didn't
I know.
So boring.
Ian was actually pretty funny last night. Mike Pence was saying his stupid garbage, and he's like, he's got that 7% locked in. He's actually at 3 cents in the prediction markets, way below the rest of the field. Glenn Youngkin is doing better. He wasn't even there. So, look.
Youngkin's not.
Here's how I described it.
Officially.
If I go down to my local bar, local pub, and I hear Ricky argue with Jimmy over tax policy and war, that's the same thing as Mike Pence and Nikki Haley having that argument. Why? Jimmy and Ricky ain't going to be the nominee. They're not going to be president, and they're not going to be vice president. We all know it. It's a waste of our time. To be fair, okay, because I try to be reasonable. I can't see the future. Ann Coulter, with respect, said she thinks Ron's going to win. Maybe.
No.
You know, she said in
She's wrong.
It might have been 2016.
She's wrong about a lot of stuff.
Because the cycle
And
overlaps.
Coulter was on Tim Cast IRL some time ago, and some of the opinion she has is just no.
2016, when she was asked, right now, among the candidates right now, who do you think is going to win? She said, right now, Donald Trump. And they laughed at her and mocked her. And even right now, when she says DeSantis, people are like, no way that happens. Dude, we don't know where we're at. Ron, I think, definitely improved. I'm impressed. Yesterday, his performance was
he did better than I was expecting.
C+ to B-.
Yeah.
And I'm not digging the guy. His opening announcement was weak. I'm here to lead the great American comeback. Just no,
Or
sorry, not
DeSantis.
good, not strong. What we
Ron
saw last night from Ron
DeSantis.
was he had good answers, different answers from Vivek, and he said it with strength. I respect that.
Except
but
for
here's my view.
half.
Vivek Ramaswamy is on stage, pushing back, fighting back, immediately asserting his positions, not waiting for the audience to tell him what to think. He knows what he thinks. He knows what he needs to say. And Ron was a little tepid. Vivek, A+, Ron DeSantis, B-. Vivek comes out with an answer. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. Ron DeSantis comes out. I think we should do this, that, or otherwise. And I'm like, Vivek's answer on these questions was premium. Ron DeSantis' answers, pretty good. Different, acceptable, right? It's kind of like, it's like a trivia question where it's like, that answer is also acceptable, but worth 100 less points. So I'm not saying this to drag the guy. I'm saying Ron DeSantis actually did well. It should be surprising to anybody that we're saying Vivek stole the show. Look at this one. I love this story. Crowd goes wild after Ramaswamy says climate change is a hoax. I'm saying Schwammy because that's what Trump says. He's like, Vivek Ramaswamy. Ramaswamy. It's like, it's not an insult. It's just like a silly mispronunciation. Check this out. Republican 2024 candidate Vivek Ramaswamy sparked a wild response from the crowd when he said climate change is a hoax during the Fox News debate in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Ramaswamy jumped in on a question about climate change before others spoke. He said he was the only person on the debate stage that was not bought and paid for. He says, let us be honest as Republicans. I'm the only person on stage who isn't bought and paid for. I can say this. Climate change is a hoax. The reality is that anti-carbon agenda is the wet blanket on our economy. The crowd erupted. Here you go. Let's play it.
No, I didn't raise a hand. Let us be honest as Republicans. I'm the only person on the stage who isn't bought and paid for, so I can say this. The climate change agenda is a hoax. The climate change agenda is a hoax.
Who's booing this guy?
I don't know.
And the reality is, the anti-carbon agenda is the wet blanket.
Maybe people like the other things that he said that they're bought and paid for. Maybe that's why they're booing. I don't get it.
On our
they opened with this question. They had this. I think it was YF. I'm not sure. And they were like, climate change for young people is a key issue. How will the Republicans respond? Blah blah blah. And it's just like, oh, dude, spare me. I am not going to sit here and listen to Greta Thunberg. How dare you?
How dare
when she doesn't talk about China or India or these other countries at all.
They're the biggest
I
polluters.
think she may have said something recently. So, okay, fair point.
Not originally,
she did.
though,
I can't remember what it was.
Had
Maybe
all
I'm
that
wrong.
hype.
But she comes and acts like it's Europe and the United States. Dude, I will say this. I do not respect the climate change activists at all. You know why? Because I used to work for some of these nonprofits. I know what they think. I know what they say to people, and I know how they act. And you know what I learned? I'll tell you a story about Deepwater Horizon. When that went off and there was an oil spill, I was told by an environmentalist organization I've been working for to keep. So here's what happens. I'm on the street. This is what precipitated me wanting to quit the industry. I'm reading the spiel. I'm talking to the guy, and I always gave him more off the cuff. And this guy goes, "That's not true." And I was like, "Wait, what's not true?" And he's like, "The amount of oil cited, that's not correct. It's way less than that." And I was like, "Oh, this is the fact sheet that we have." And he goes, "Well, you're wrong, and you're misleading people and you're asking for money. And I was like, dude, I am not intending to mislead anybody. These are the fact sheets that we got. And he's like, well, check your facts. And I'm like, I will. Long story short of it, I was told just to keep saying it because, we need to raise money. And I was like, are you kidding me? I did a Google search. I asked somebody and it was way less. And I was pissed off. I don't trust them. But more importantly, look, man, decentralizing the grid, amazing. More solar power on more homes, amazing. Wind
nuclear,
turbines, amazing. I'm a fan of all of this
small
stuff.
nuclear
power, amazing.
Yeah.
We do not want one power station that can be shut down by a cyber attack.
Yeah.
Climate change to me is not the argument. You want to go to a conservative, you want to go to a libertarian or someone who doesn't care about this, you want to go to someone who works in an oil field or whatever. I say this. I got no beef with carbon. I am concerned about mass overproduction, toxification of environments, mercury, etc., dead zones in the ocean, pollution, the Pacific Gyre, all of
those
these things
forever
are bad.
chemicals.
We got to be good stewards of the earth.
Plastics. Ugh.
But when you get these wealthy individuals flying on jets all over the world while complaining everybody else needs to stop.
Yeah, John
Don't
Kerry.
believe you. Sorry. When they say the water is going to rise in 10 years and then they buy beachfront property, don't believe you. So I just say this. I think they're all hypocrites and liars. My position, decentralizing our electrical grid is tremendous, tremendous. If there is an attack on our country or anything like that, and we've got solar power and backup power or a storm or an earthquake, we're good. Imagine if you've got a couple power plants in an area and an earthquake hits and now nobody has power. Bad news. Imagine people get solar power. It's not
that small
perfect
nuclear
way to power the grid, but it creates a safety net that is really, really good. Decentralizes power consumption, reduces carbon, whatever you want to call it. I think that's good. But my question here is, who is booing him? This is absolutely amazing. I love this. And here we go. The New York Times. Ramaswamy seizes spotlight as DeSantis hangs back. 7 debate takeaways. I don't care about the debate takeaways, but basically they say it was the Ramaswamy show. I can agree. Here we have this from Newsweek. Who won the Republican debate? 3 analysts give their verdict. Let's just cut to the chase. Who do you think won? Vivek Ramaswamy, they say, yes. Ron DeSantis, sidelined. That's incredible. Nikki Haley, nuanced and honest.
From Newsweek.
Best of the rest. Really? Nikki Haley. Let's check the prediction markets and see what they say. No, look at that. Nikki Haley coming up in 4th place. I was not a fan.
I wasn't a fan
Nikki
either.
Haley had some nonsense statement. Martyr made tweets. Holy-ish. Haley just said that Putin has promised that after he's done conquering Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. That is a blatant, whole cloth warmongering lie. Yes. When she said that, we all looked around like, what? That is not true. We haven't even, there's not even an inclination right now that Putin wants to take anything other than the Donbass, so he has a land bridge to Crimea because he wants a warm water port in the Black Sea.
Want the rest of Ukraine.
These people are
he just wants
evil.
The South.
I despise these warmongering psychopaths. Vivek Ramaswamy was the only one to immediately, without hesitation, say no more funding for Ukraine. And he said, why are we spending money defending Ukraine's border when we are not defending our own?
Yeah.
And what does Nikki Haley do? You want to defund Israel. And he goes, no, I don't. That's not correct. It's wrong. And she just kept saying it over and over again. I loathe these people. But here's where we're at. Who won the debate, says the New York Times. Observers weigh in. Ron DeSantis. Hey, I'm not going to leave that out. Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley, and Donald Trump. Oh, you'll love to see it.
Donald Trump. That's
the
funny.
largest question looming over Wednesday's debate was whether Mr. Trump's absence would be a misfire. By and large, political experts, even those who didn't have a favorable view of Trump, agreed it was not the case. Amy Walter, the publisher and editor-in-chief of the Cook Political Report, offered a stark assessment. Trump has to be pretty happy with this debate. Yeah. Some have suggested none of these people will be VP. Why offer the VP position to anyone who's trying to take your job, they say.
Yeah, true.
I don't know if I agree. I think Trump has just seen a tremendous, tremendous ally in Vivek Ramaswamy. Now, Vivek says he will not take a VP position. He's not a number 2 kind of guy. He wants the job and he's vying for it. But I don't know where Ramaswamy goes after this if he doesn't take a VP position.
2028.
I think Vivek did such a powerful job last night that were Trump to pick him, then I think that clears up a lot of the problems people have with Trump. Trump lost in 2020 by 42,000 votes in 3 states. Don't let them lie to you when they say Trump can't win. It is laughable. Like, nah, too many people hate Trump. He can't win. 42,000 votes, dude. But Biden got 81 million. Ballot harvesting and ballot chasing and anti-Trump sentiment. But do you think they can maintain that with Joe Biden's failures? When people were voting against Trump, they had nothing relative to compare him to. Now, people are mad at Joe Biden and Trump ain't in office. That's Trump's advantage now, because you can't come out and be like, the economy's bad and it's Trump's fault. Climate change, COVID. Trump's not the president. The economy in 2019 was really good. So right now, you have Trump's hard base. They're going to support him. And if it's Trump versus Biden, Biden loses support. When Biden came into office, he was at 40 to 50%. Then Afghanistan happens and his approval rating collapses. How many votes did he lose because of that? The economy is in bad shape. People are saying they can't buy groceries anymore. I'm sorry. Joe Biden is going to bear the brunt of that, whether you think it's his fault or not. Trump's advantage. So, in the meantime, I'd love to see a Ramaswamy take the VP offer, but maybe
so would I.
I don't know where he goes after this. The dude is, this is amazing. Vivek is 38 years old and worth $500 million plus.
Wow.
Here's a guy who's a proven leader, very smart, at the highest end of the bell curve for intelligence, charisma, tact. You know, we were talking about this, and I'm like, he's not Trump, though, right? They're both top-tier dudes, alphas, right? But Trump's got something more. And someone said, Vivek is Bruce Banner and Trump is the Hulk. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's one way to put it. Trump is a Hulk, lumbering figure. I got to be honest, though. Some of the answers I didn't like from that Tucker interview. I want to see Trump be more assertive, but I also think Trump is playing it smart.
He might also be kind of worried about the indictment.
Epstein was killed or whatever. He says, I don't know. It's possible. I don't know, though. And I can respect that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. I got to be honest with all you guys. Vivek seems more attuned for the current political world than Trump does. And I mean it. But we need the bull in the china shop, at least this time around. I think Vivek offers that tact and strategy, and he's offering it way better than DeSantis has. And so I think he'd be a great VP. I don't know if VP is the right position, though. Some people say chief of staff or secretary of state, actually working on policy and things like that. So we'll see. VP is more of the political position to get the votes. And that might be something an offer he should take. Trump right now does not have the zeitgeist. He does not have the culture. Vivek does. But Trump has the arc. He has the storyline to be finished. He has the support base, and he needs his revenge. If it were a flat choice right now, if I could point to someone and say they'd be president, I'd be like, Vivek. Realistically, what can we accomplish? Trump. I think that's where we're at. But we'll see, man. Times can change. Things can change. I have no idea where this goes. Like Ron DeSantis improved greatly. Nikki Haley apparently did as well. So we'll see. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel.
Very interesting. Yeah, I like Vivek a lot. I thought he stole the show. He talked a lot. I don't know who's booing him, but Vivek wants to basically gut the FBI. He's like what I would want in a libertarian, like Dave Smith. That would be my choice. But for a Republican, he's not quite he's not quite aligned with me as much as Dave Smith. But yeah, he's way better than anyone else. Ron DeSantis and everything. I also think that Ron DeSantis definitely improved compared to where he was at before. But I just don't like. I think he's a liar. I think all these guys are liars. Why some of those people are even on the debate stage? They're not even going to win. It would just seem like a waste of time when I was watching it. If I was watching Crowder's stream, I probably would have been so bored. But yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. The next debate should be interesting. I wonder if anyone will actually resign before them to, clear up some space so we can actually hear from some people that are going to win. But yeah, I guess we'll see. Let's check back in with the Trump surrender. One moment, I'll unmute this.
In a matter of moments, we do expect former President Trump to come out of the jail. We have been staked out here on the Jefferson Street side all day long, and really things picking up in the last hour. no really protesters. We've seen a couple of people, folks from Atlanta who live here, work here, go to school here, have walked by occasionally, but we haven't noticed anyone really in the last hour or two since the former president was in the air or when he landed, showing you just how significant this hard lockdown has been, which we were told about for weeks now.
This is a rather simplistic question, but why are protesters and those who are passionate about this subject not gathered on Jefferson Street, given the fact that there are really two ways in and out?
They probably
Common
locked it down.
sense would decree that, you know, if he's not over on that side, that they should be over on this side. I think it's curious that nobody has decided to go over there.
Right, so I can tell you the reason probably for that, there's a lot more green space over on the Rice Street side, a lot of residences over there, so it lends itself to have more of those protesters there. But we understand the motorcade at this moment is moving our way, and so we should expect this to come. We see some law enforcement vehicles in motion. You see that Dodge Charger just passed our way, and now here come the motorcycles as the president.
So that was it. It took him that little time to do his.
Jackson Airport.
There's so many
County
police.
Sheriff's Office deputies, Georgia State Patrol, Atlanta Police, and now the black SUVs, which we.
This is so dumb. They're indicting him. Look at all this security they need just for him to go and get fingerprinted. Could you imagine if they actually locked him up? Sorry about that. Locked him up.
Those motorcycles going ahead to clear the way, making sure traffic is clear, so the former president, has a smooth ride back to the airport.
It's funny they keep calling him the president, and then I feel the need to correct themselves, former president.
Half a dozen vehicles here, these black SUVs.
They still call George Bush like President George Bush, right?
Like they just arrived.
The Barack Obama. It's just with Donald Trump. Got to call him the former president.
Vehicle there, press vehicle, and another Sprinter van passing us now. Atlanta Fire Rescue truck and Atlanta.
All right, Joe Ripley reporting for us live outside Jefferson Street on that side of the jail.
Imagine if they actually convicted him and wanted to put him in jail. What are they? All these cops have to go in there with him?
Trump airliner will then fly back toward the
northeast. Such a silly premise.
And some interesting notes from our reporters on the ground and just some observation from here in the studio. It looked like the booking process took under 17 minutes.
Wow, yeah, that wasn't very long at all. I covered one story, and now he's leaving.
Hours from what I've been reading. And we did see him use the Jefferson Street entrance. He's the only defendant in this case to use that entrance. We're told it's because it's more secure. There are less people there. If you just saw
the Secret Service, they don't have Secret Service like Trump does.
That's where he was, and you could see the difference between Joe and Ron, who was on the Rice Street side of the jail. A lot more people over there. And we do know, according to the court docket that came out once he was booked, that he was booked on 13 charges, and his height and weight came in at 6'3", 215 pounds.
And that has been a point of conjecture for a lot of sports books from Las Vegas to the United Kingdom have been trying and taking bets about how many pounds Mr. Trump would weigh. And I thought of those stories that I have read this week about betting. People will bet on anything, but that has certainly been a subject that has received a lot of money on it in
That's
the last
really
few
funny.
days.
And another element that makes Georgia so special and so different. Once again, this is the fourth criminal indictment of the former president, and this is the first time we are getting these figures. So in a way, the sheriff was right. He would be treated the same as anyone else coming into the jail, but you know, he is a former president. So
well, except for the motorcade.
He has a motorcade, and so we did see a little bit of different treatment, but in and out, less than 17 minutes, and now you are taking a live.
People thought it was going to take like an hour, but no, 17 minutes, in and out.
Jackson. And if you all are just joining us, we want to just give you an update on what we've seen over the last couple of hours. Just before 5 o'clock, we saw former President Trump's plane take off from Newark, New Jersey. He landed in Atlanta around just after 7 o'clock. talk. He walked off the plane, went straight to a black SUV. He did not give any remarks. And then that motorcade came down to the Fulton County Jail. He was brought into the jail, booked and released in under 17 minutes. So you are caught up right now. This is what we're seeing. It looks like a little bit, we're trying to get a better view for you there from our 11 Alive Sky Tracker, a little bit of movement on his counsel. We saw that this morning he actually replaced one of his lawyers, Drew Findling, no longer representing him, and he has been replaced by Steve Sadow.
All right, so we have been watching this for just about an hour now. His plane landed a little after 7 o'clock this evening, and you know, I think we have been speculating about how long he would be on the ground in Atlanta before he was back inside that 757 on his way back to the Northeast. And it looks as though he may be certainly in that plane within about 65.
Their production's so weird. You can hear the producers or whoever in the background.
The former president is unpredictable in what he may or may not do in terms of potentially talking to press or giving a statement.
It's interesting they drive right down the center of the road.
Once he gets back to the airport, for that we will have to wait and see. If he does give a statement, we will bring it to you live. But once again, taking an aerial look over there, you were actually, if you were wondering what was going on in that car that you were just in, that is one of the cameras that is following that motorcade along. But right now we are taking an aerial view from that. And this has just been really a historic day. No matter which side of the aisle that you're on, Fulton County has never seen a former president get booked in that jail.
Yeah, no county
now
has.
Will tell to see if we will see a potential mugshot of the former president, like we've seen from several of his co-defendants throughout the week.
That'd be funny if he's just smiling. He's all happy.
Tomorrow for the rest of those who were indicted almost 2 weeks ago now to report. So we will see if all of them report by noon tomorrow. So that is her deadline.
And there's been a lot of movement this week when it comes to that. So we were here late last night, or excuse me, not late last night, late Monday night when those indictments came up, and she gave her press conference probably around 11, around there, late in the night, and she did give that deadline. And so this week was when we first started seeing, I believe Monday is when we first started seeing a little bit of movement on people going and negotiating their consent bonds. And the reason that they wanted to negotiate a consent bond is so that they could do what you just saw there, go into the jail, be processed, and then they could go home. We do know that there are still some people who need to surrender, and they're going to have to do that.
I think there's like 9
at Friday, or the district attorney says that they'll be arrested. They'll be coming after them.
As far as traffic goes tonight,
how are they going to get to him though?
Are able to say in Atlanta it has been unencumbered. It has been a very easy night as far as the Trump motorcade, and that given the fact that there was a Falcons game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium tonight, so you have increased numbers of people in downtown Atlanta. That simply has not been a case, and we can see it right now that it is smooth sailing back to the airport.
Barely any cars on the road there. Very interesting to see. Speaking of just the case and just seeing some other things that we have seen today.
They probably have it blocked off.
In his counsel, he's replaced Drew Findling with
going
Steve
in that direction.
We did
it looks like look at all the traffic going on the overpass.
Of the trial, at least for one of his co-defendants, Kenneth Cheesebro. He put in a motion for
such a waste of time. Could you imagine living in
district attorney
Atlanta
saying, okay,
and having to deal with all this?
October 23rd, and the judge in the case, Scott McCaffrey,
for some nonsense case,
confirming that. So right now he does have that trial date. And speaking of trials, we have our legal analyst standing by right now. We're going to head over to Zach Merchant to give a little bit of color on what we're seeing here.
Guys, you're right. Good evening. This is John Meixner with us now. You're currently a UGA law professor, but you spent years as a federal prosecutor before that. I want you to put your prosecutor hat back on. From a prosecutor's perspective,
is he George Soros funded? If not, then
this case that District Attorney Fani Willis
what's the point?
Yeah, thanks, Zach. I think the RICO charge is very expansive in this case. It's a very complicated case. One strong aspect is the sort of factual background in this case is pretty well known. There's not a lot of serious unknowns in the indictments, and I think Fani Willis, for the most part, knows what the witnesses are going to say when they get to trial, and that makes the path for preparation a lot easier.
Now, lawyers are always taught to think of a case from all angles. I know you spent the majority of your career prosecuting cases, but if you shifted gears and we're looking at this from a defense perspective, what do you think a defense attorney, what threads would they likely be pulling as we move forward into this case, presumably, at least for some defendants, eventually towards a trial?
Yeah, I think a few different things. One is the sort of procedural complexity that's involved in dealing with this kind of case. So if there are severances, so if there are different trials for different defendants, that can become more complicated for the prosecutor. And then I think the real issue is many of the charges requires the prosecutors to demonstrate that Trump or other defendants knew that they were making false statements when they were acting for some of those charges. And it's always difficult to prove the state of mind of individuals.
You're not going to be able to prove that.
We are watching right now on the monitors here,
false statements. Trump definitely thinks he won.
Presumably making its way back to Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. This is the biggest flashpoint of the legal challenges the former president faces, and that flashpoint happening right here in Atlanta. But it's not the only case that the former president faces. He's got 2 federal cases, one out of Florida, one out of D.C., the D.C. case being an election interference case in its own right, and another state case in New York. You were a federal prosecutor. You're familiar with challenging cases. What kind of wrinkles are just logistically these multiple cases going to pose for all of the attorneys and all of the witnesses involved here, and for that matter, the defendants?
Enormous challenges. I'll start with the prosecutors. Anytime you have overlapping cases like these, there's a lot of overlap between the Georgia case and the federal January 6th case. Anytime you have witnesses who are going to testify multiple times, that becomes difficult. Obviously, prosecutors aren't going to know exactly when things are going to happen. They've got to be well prepared. I think in these cases, you have a bunch of folks who are very well versed, who have been investigating these cases for a very long time, and they're ready to go.
How do prosecutors, and for that matter, probably judges, too, decide which case actually goes first? On social media, which is always a thing we're wary of bringing too far into the conversation, but folks have talked about it, almost feels like there's a line forming between these multiple cases, and different district attorneys, different prosecutors are trying to find their position in this queue of who actually takes the former president to trial first, and if there will be a trial before the 2024 presidential election?
Yeah, all good questions that are hard to predict. I think the judges are probably pretty mindful of cases that are going on in other jurisdictions. Some things are outside of their control. So Kenneth Chesebro filed a motion asserting his speedy trial right here in Georgia. And I think when that sort of thing happens, that pushes a case usually to the front of the line because defendants have specific rights to go to trial, and those are usually respected as best as possible.
Now, in this case, former President Trump's bond was set. What's known as a consent bond. It was agreed upon between the district attorney's office and his defense attorneys before he turned himself in today. That's, in one way, what helps him get in and out so quickly among all the other security concerns and the unique status of the former president. But one of the conditions of his bond was that he is ordered not to talk to other defendants, not to talk to other witnesses, including in his bond on social media. How do you anticipate, how big of a challenge do you think that will be for the former president?
Get you social media.
And how do judges manage this sort of unique condition?
Yeah, usually law enforcement is investigating, making sure that folks are following the conditions of their bond. There's sometimes court officers who do that as well. It's very important to protect the integrity of the evidence, to protect victims and folks who might be at threat. And obviously, any case involving Donald Trump and social media, you don't know exactly what's going to happen. So I think there will be unique challenges here.
So if you're watching us right now, you're watching us likely on television, either online or over the air or over cable. We're seeing the pictures live right now. Of
I'm watching it on YouTube.
Motorcade moving back towards the airport, Hartsfield-Jackson. One of the unique components about criminal cases in the state of Georgia is that they frequently, almost always, are also on camera. Cameras are welcome in the court. What kind of dynamic, what kind of impact do you anticipate that will have as we move forward?
I think it's extremely important. Some of us are old enough to remember the O.J. Simpson trial and how that took the public sort of by storm. I think we're going to have that magnified even greater in the event of a trial. In this case, I think it's gone
it's not murder or anything.
Part of the strength of a RICO charge is it allows her a lot of latitude to tell a broad story, bring in a lot of evidence about the enterprise that was going on. And I think she's thinking about how the public is going to be watching these trials and and taking in all the things that happened during that period of months.
You mentioned District Attorney Fani Willis's seeming decision to charge a large group of defendants, 19 in all, and you referred to it as telling a broad story to the jury. Others have commented that perhaps this is a misfire, a strategic mistake, and that the district attorney would have been better off taking this in pieces and charging smaller groups at a time. Talk to me about the pros and cons of each approach.
Yeah, so the con is, I think what we're already seeing is that it's procedurally very complex. Some defendants may assert a right to go to trial early on. Others, I wouldn't be surprised if the president files motions and is trying to delay things. So that presents problems if Ms. Willis had to try the case for some defendants at one time and then do another trial for other defendants. That makes everything more complex. It's the opposite of the approach taken by Jack Smith in the federal cases, just charging President Trump, trying to make things in a neat and tidy box. The pros are it allows her to bring in all of the evidence about everything that happened developing the fake electors scheme and all of the things that are contained in the indictment. And so it allows her in some ways to bring in
they're allowed to have
broader,
this other
more
electors.
Comprehensive perspective of all of
so
the
it's so
things that are
funny.
charged as crimes
Mike
here.
Pence just decided not to listen to him.
If you're presenting a complex case to jurors,
fake electors. That's a stupid term for
them. In some ways, it's human nature to want to see the full story as alleged. Is that part of the strategic choice here? That presenting almost the, again, we should say the prosecutor's version, because defense attorneys certainly are going to do everything they can to rebut the accusations, but prosecutors, in this case, with this broad indictment, are able to bring a full narrative.
I think that's exactly right. I think any prosecutor or defense attorney will tell you that trying a case is about telling a story. Lawyers are storytellers. Lawyers are folks who try to simplify complex things and break them down into easy to understand concepts for jurors. I think part of the benefit of the RICO statute is it allows Fani Willis to try to tell that entire story to the jury.
You spent time again as a federal prosecutor. We're seeing right now the liaison between local law enforcement and federal law enforcement, the Federal Secret Service at the very least today, vitally involved in the journey of former President Trump to the jail and back today.
Again, if he gets convicted, it goes to jail. What are these people just going to be in there all the time?
State and local law enforcement.
Yeah, there's normally substantial cooperation. I worked on many cases involving task forces that were combined, made up of FBI agents and local police officers. So they're pretty well versed in working together, both on investigations and on more sort of security or safety oriented things like what we're seeing today.
One of the components about the Georgia case, this Fulton County case, and we're actually going to take it back to the desk right now.
All right. Thank you so much, Jack, for giving us that information. Right now, we want to head to Jennifer Bellamy as we see that motorcade pulling back into the airport. Hi, Jennifer.
Yeah, Faith, we can see that happening right now. Just a short time ago, the former president was at the Fulton County Rice Street jail facility. But again, he has returned that motorcade, making its way into Signature Air and heading out to the Trump airplane. We noticed it didn't take quite that much time for the former president to get from the airport to the Fulton County jail or for him to get back here tonight. And so we are seeing that motorcade take that trip around the plane, and we will shortly be seeing the former president as he boards the plane to head back to New Jersey. Now, what we are anticipating is that the former president will make some sort of remarks, give some sort of comments or statements. We will be watching as this continues to unfold to see if he says anything and what he does say following that.
It's a witch hunt. That's what I'll
20
say.
Minutes or so over at the Fulton County Jail. And guys, you want to remember the president.
Dark time in American history.
Here in the Metro Atlanta area around 7:03, and right now it is 8:13. So that shows you how quickly this entire process has gone. Touching down here at the airport here in Atlanta around 7:03, and it's now 8:13, and he has returned to the airport to begin his journey.
His
back
airplane
to New
is
Jersey.
sick.
So we are seeing people start to exit these vehicles, and we will shortly be seeing the former president. We will be monitoring for the next few moments to see if he does make statements. We see some aerial microphones, and we also see some cameras right there, so we are anticipating that he will make some remarks. We will bring those to you as soon as they come, but we do know that The former president has now been booked here in Fulton County following that indictment, 13 charges, his fourth indictment here in the United States. 19 people total involved, indicted in this situation in Fulton County. And they did have until noon on Friday to surrender. That was the deadline issued by Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. She has, we see that the former president has made that deadline. We are still waiting on some others, and we have seen a number of other people go through this similar process to turn themselves in here in Fulton County. So right now, again, we are waiting for comments from former President Donald Trump. You see there's a big group gathered right there on your screens in both of these images, and we are waiting to see what he might say following this booking process, this arrest process here in Fulton County in Georgia, in a state that has become very consequential in elections as he does seek the nomination for the Republican Party in a bid to return to the White House. So we will anticipate what he has to say. But again, we know that the former president, again, got here at 7:03 after a bit of a delay. We know there was some rainy conditions up in New Jersey that delayed him, but that still put him pretty on track. He had said on his social media platform, Truth Social, that he would be arrested around 7:30, and that is exactly very close to what we saw take place over at that Rice Street facility. Normally, an intake process takes a long time, and we believe it took about 20 minutes or so for the former president to go through that process at Rice Street Jail. We know that there was a lockdown there at the jail, nobody else coming in or out while this process was underway, and we know that the former president did get out very quickly, going in on the side that avoided contact with any of the media, with any of the press that had been out there, and the protesters that had been out there both in support and against him, and again avoiding contact with them, and pretty much not causing too much
quick
traffic,
and easy
by not going through that downtown connector area on his way to and from the Fulton County facility. So again, we are watching right now. What you see on your screen is waiting to see if and what the former president has to say. It looks like he is now getting out of his vehicle. Let's hear what he has to say.
Thank you very much for being here. I really believe this is a very sad day for America. This should never happen. If you challenge an election, you should be able to challenge an election. I thought
exactly.
It was a rigged election, a stolen election, and I should have every right to do that. As you know, you have many people that you've been watching over the years do the same thing, whether it's Hillary Clinton or Stacey Abrams or many others. When you have that great freedom to challenge, you have to be able to, otherwise you're going to have very dishonest elections. What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong, and everybody knows it. I've never had such support. And that goes with the other ones, too. What they're doing is election interference. They're trying to interfere with an election. There's never been anything like it in our country before. This is their way of campaigning. And this is one instance, but you have three other instances. It's election interference. So I want to thank you for being here.
Now, they did something wrong.
At all, and we have every right, every single right, to challenge an election that we think is dishonest, that we think is very dishonest. So thank you all very much, and I'll see you very soon. Thank you very much.
Did you pardon yourself?
Did you pardon yourself? That would be interesting.
And there are those comments from the former president Donald Trump as he begins the trek back to New Jersey after turning himself in here in Fulton County at the Fulton County Jail after the indictment by Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. The former president saying it's a sad day for America.
Call her Fanny.
This should never have happened.
So she gets. I don't care about her pronunciation.
Sticking with that narrative and saying
sticking with that narrative.
And Stacey Abrams, for other Democrats, had done the same thing. He said that he did nothing wrong.
Well,
he
don't comment if it's true.
process for this indictment and others that he is facing.
It's a witch hunt.
Election interference. He said that this is a form of campaigning. He said that he and others involved
had
every right to challenge the election, and again, saying that he did nothing wrong here. So we are now seeing the former president make his way. He has stepped back onto that plane, and he will now be making his way back to New Jersey for about a 2-hour flight, if what holds true for him on his way down here returns true for his return back there. So again,
waste of time.
Making a
giant waste of time.
Trip, comparatively speaking.
2 hours there, 2 hours back, plus the hour. 5 hours. Look, he has an awesome plane, and he could probably do stuff on it.
Remarks, calling
so dumb.
saying that he is innocent and calling this a sad day for America, saying that this should not happen, claiming that this is a form of campaigning and election interference. So again, the former president about to make his way back to New Jersey. We have seen him arriving about 7:03, and right now it is 8:18. So a little over an hour here on the ground in Metro Atlanta for this process of turning himself in. He is one of 19 co-defendants indicted.
We'll cut it there. Very, very interesting. This whole thing is very interesting. Like I was saying before, it's like, how are you gonna go and prosecute him and send him to jail and look at just to get him booked at all these places? There's all these the giant motorcade. The Secret Service has precedent over everything with presidents because it's in the Constitution. So. Yeah, it doesn't even make any sense. I've said this for a long time. You can't really prosecute a former president. You know, if someone's been president before, what are you going to do? You're going to have to build them a whole jailhouse, maybe do house arrest, fortify a house, and just keep them in there. Because what are you going to do? Like if they convict Biden, right? What are they going to do? They lock him in his Delaware home or something? Because the Secret Service is going to have to protect him. You're going to have a Secret Service in a jail all the time. It just doesn't even make any sense. But yeah, I guess we'll see how it unfolds next. I think it's pretty fascinating. I think he'll probably, he'll get. I don't know. I think he probably won't even get convicted in the first place. And if he does, the appeals court's definitely gonna just overturn it anyway. So it's just a waste of time. It's to get him money. It's an election interference, like Trump was just saying. It's stupid. But they're just gonna keep at it. But with that, let's move on to the next story. Donald Trump Jr. praises Vivek Ramaswamy debate performance and slams Ron DeSantis. Let's play a clip.
They failed them, and they're not telling the truth.
You said Vivek had the best performance tonight. Who, in your opinion, had the worst performance?
Well, Ron DeSantis, because he needed to do good. He sat there like a wallflower, basically got ambushed on all sides, and everything that he said that actually got some applause was literally already Trump policy. We use the military to fight the cartels. It's a threat to our nation. That's Trump policy. Our nation is in decline. Our nation's in decline. The nation's in decline. Literally from the Trump campaign website. He's not capable of those original thoughts, so he takes an idea that works and tries to make it his own. But I didn't see a single idea. And again, I didn't see him prosecute the case of how he's going to beat Joe Biden, because for 6 months, I heard he's the guy that could beat Biden. Because all the polls, before people got to actually know Ron DeSantis, said that he would be the guy to do that. Once people got to know him, the polls went down, the personality's nothing. Now, not only is he losing to Trump badly in a primary, he's losing to Joe Biden by 3 points in most of the national polls, while Trump is up by 5. So the entire argument that they found at the campaign, whether it was reboot 1, 2, 3, what are we on now? 5 or 6? Reboot 6? 5? Whatever it is. Reboot 6 still hasn't resonated. And after tonight, it didn't. So he's the guy that needed to actually perform and didn't.
He actually did the best I've seen him tonight.
I think landed some great shots, and he made some incredible points. He had original thought, and more importantly, it wasn't robotic.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
He wasn't reading from a script like that he just memorized. He's trying to remember the points, and saying that. Even sort of when DeSantis did the interruption, to me, it was so fake. It was like a scripted interruption. Right? Fox News obviously giving him well, don't you think it'd be important to do the veterans thing so he can throw that in there? It's wonderful. But, again, another reason to your point, why would Trump go do a thing
Fox
that's
is
probably set up
for
to be
DeSantis, for
worked
sure.
against him? I understand why Fox would want it. Right? It'd be great for their ratings and their business. Instead, he did something else, and I think they're pushing 90 million viewers already. So, Trump won. On the stage tonight, I think Vivek performed the best. DeSantis needed a breakout moment, and, it was pathetic.
What do you think about Chris?
I don't know. I didn't speak to him. So I spoke to him last night, sort of literally, joking about the insanity of what will ensue tomorrow. But, again, as I said, that would, to most people, normally be, pretty somber moment, pretty trying. But I think for us at this point, it's just, Tuesday. What do you make just another day.
What do you make of Christie saying your father is too afraid to debate?
I don't know. I got it. I like what he said. Of the things that he said, it actually resonated. I like the spirit. I like the fight. I like that he's an entrepreneur, not a bureaucrat. He actually started businesses, to call balls and strikes. I don't know where he was in 20 or 18 or 16.
He's talking around Ramaswamy.
You can change your political views. You got to sell that to the American people. Is it viable, or are you a good marketer? Right. So, but on the stage tonight, he's the only one that actually performed him, as far as I'm concerned.
Interesting. Yeah, I would agree. I thought Ramaswamy did a great job. Like I was saying earlier, DeSantis was just meh. Very meh. I actually kind of liked him better than he usually is, but what is it? Maybe a B-, right? He's just, Ron should just not have ran. Like I've said before, he might not even be able to bring it back for governor of Florida in 2026 because people are just mad that he went against Trump. They want him to support Trump, but he didn't want to. He just chose not to. So now here we are. A lot of people are supporting him, like Ann Coulter and stuff, but who cares? Or like Dave Rubin, but again, who cares? I think Ben Shapiro supports DeSantis. It's like, whatever. Laura Loomer, she's from Florida. She hates DeSantis. She's on Timcast IRL, pretty recently, and then she was just wrecking him, all the problems that he had, and she made a lot of really good points. But yeah, Ron's just gonna keep trying, I guess, and campaigning, and you can't even raise his hand all the way for Trump. Like when it's like, hey, would you pardon Trump? He's just like, I guess everyone else. Oh, everyone's cheering. Okay, fine, maybe I will. Sure, I will. It's like, don't be a wimp. Be like, of course I'm gonna pardon Trump. Of course. Like, what are you talking about? All this is nonsense. Like on that statement Trump was just making. When he just got back to the airport. Anyone should be able to challenge an election. Stacey Abrams did it. Hillary Clinton did it. And that was all fine. Fine and dandy. But then when Trump and his lawyer, they're indicting his lawyers. Not even just like him. Like his lawyers. And his lawyer said he could do it. It's so dumb. There's nothing wrong with this. They've done it so many times. And they say the fake electors, Nixon back in the 60s, Hawaii sent election electors, and Nixon picked them. And he's a Republican, and he sided with the Democrats. I need to know. I got to learn more about that case because it's like, why did he side with the Democrats? So there must have been some blatant election interference, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna go with that. But I don't know. Even if Nixon was corrupt, he's like he didn't want the president to win so he could run the next time or whatever. I mean, that's how it is. Mike Pence at the debate, he was just like, oh, I upheld my oath to the Constitution. That's why I didn't go with the other electors and send it back to the states for them to recertify. That could have been the process. That's like the process. The vice president approves it, and they send it back to the states, and then the states recertify it. So, I mean, if they certified it again and said it, then there we go. But Pence didn't do that. Pence is a wimp. He didn't want to do any of that. I don't know why. He's just a giant wimp. It's just like I think he actually thought he was going to win if in 2024. He's just like, okay, I won't be vice president again, but who cares? 4 years, I'll win, and people will support me because I upheld my oath to the Constitution. The Constitution says you could send them back to the states and have them recertify. So, I mean, I guess upheld the Constitution. Either way, it's upholding the Constitution. He doesn't have to do that. But yeah, that's how it was, So Mike Pence did that. So Mike Pence, giant wimp. But in hindsight, maybe he thinks he should have done it. I don't think so. Well, on that debate stage last night, Pence was just acted like he just had it in the bag. Like, I got this. And he's just so boring. He's like, thank you so much for having me. And went on in his closing statements. I think his opening ones with something similar. Oh, thank you so much for having me, blah, 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 blah. You guys are great. It's like he doesn't even say anything straight up. And he talks so damn slow, Mike Pence does. Him and Ramaswamy were had some exchange about that. Because Pence was just like, oh, maybe I could say it slower. Yeah, it's like, maybe not. Maybe talk like a real person. It's just so boring and slow, boring and slow, boring and slow. The only time anyone ever liked Pence was during COVID. But that was just like a trying time for everyone, and they saw him on there every day. But what is up with those flies? All those flies always on his forehead all the time. Is his hair just made of flies and they just come out sometimes? And he never even notices. Lucky for him, there's no flies at the debate last night, but unlucky for us. That would have been so funny. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there on this one. Let's jump back to Trump. He's now leaving the airport. I don't think we want the reporter's commentary. It's just like, who cares? But yeah, here he goes, going back to New Jersey after all this stupid nonsense, wasting his time, taxiing back. Yeah, really, really dumb. But yeah, they're going to do it anyway. They're just going to keep up the nonsense. And yeah, actually, let's see what these reporters have to say.
We're a betting man, and maybe Zach Merchant can disagree with this, but I would guess that he will not be doing that by proxy. I would guess that he will be here in physical attendance in Atlanta. Zach, do you agree with that?
You know, I think the best person to answer that might be B.J. Bernstein. B.J., quickly, you want to give us an answer that you practiced in
Metro? I'm going to have to relay that, B.J. Just yes or no to what I just said. We don't have your mic set up right now.
Probably no. I mean,
you think that he could do it by Zoom?
They could.
I don't know what they're talking about. Trump's
it's probably
tribe?
going to be in person. So, yes, she does agree with me, Faith and Zach.
We'll definitely
That's a long way to go for that answer, but I'm glad we were able to get it for you.
And we will definitely bring in our legal analysts later on. But we want to just make sure that, I mean, look at we want to give you all the images of the plane leaving. He's making his way down the runway here, about to head back to New Jersey. And just to put into perspective the amount of time it took. He took off just before 5 o'clock.
That's like 5 hours,
around
right?
7 o'clock. It's now 8:30. He's already been.
Yeah,
to
but
the
by the
jail,
time he gets back, it's going to be
fingerprinted,
5
mugshot
hours.
taken,
It's a long
back
time.
To the airport, and now he's back in his plane where he's about to take off. So he's really been in Atlanta for about an hour and 30 minutes or so. So a very quick trip. He did make some remarks. And it's going to
Those taxiways seem so small for that plane.
Like
His
I said,
plane
the
is
week of
huge.
September 5th, that proposed arraignment date, and we're going to speak to our legal
Got all the
analyst later on
sirens
to talk
right
about
below
some
the plane.
of the other perspectives
So much
here. But right
logistics.
now we want to get to Jonathan because we want to talk about
Dealing
something
with
really
all this.
important. We did
Just a
confirm
waste of taxpayer
with the
money.
sheriff that there is a mugshot out there, but
Is there?
right now
Where
it
is
hasn't
it?
been released. Jonathan,
Come
you have a
on,
little bit more
release
information about
it.
something that
Let's
people might
go.
be seeing online right now.
Put it on a shirt.
Verify this because, Faith, you know, Trump mugshot has been trending all day on Twitter.
Yeah.
And right now, this photo of President Trump, the former president, rather, is circulating online, claiming
They keep
to be
doing
the
that.
official Fulton
The
County
president, the
mugshot,
former
but
president.
isn't real. So tonight we are verifying, and our sources are Reuters. We also did a Google reverse image search, and the video that we all saw that was taken just moments ago right here and seen on 11 Alive. Our video shows when the former president got off the plane here in Atlanta. Look, he was wearing a red tie, and the mugshot that you just saw had a red tie and blue stripes. So two different ties on that fake mugshot, showing a different tie. We went also into reverse Google search. We submitted the image of the former president, and it leads us to this very Reuters image. According to the website, this image is from more than 2 years ago, so it is not from tonight. So we can verify, know that the mugshot right here that has the red X over it is not the former president's mugshot. So we, of course, are going to continue to wait for the real mugshot to come out. We know some of them have been taking anywhere from several hours to the very next day to come out. But, of course, when the real mugshot of the former president is released, we, of course, will have it for you here. And
I will too. David Carson Show.
Thank you for the update to verify on the mugshot, the much talked about mugshot of which we have not seen yet. We will soon.
Everyone
see
wants
in the
to
hours
just
ahead,
have a
and
shirt of it.
It certainly will take social media by storm and will
Yeah.
get a lot of attention, needless to say.
Absolutely. Well, we want to thank our audience on NBC right now. Those of you tuning in, we're going to take a
Very interesting.
elsewhere. We're going to take a short break, but once again,
Very interesting. Yeah, so it's crazy this is even happening. I'm looking forward to that mugshot, though. I think it's going to be really funny. I think there's going to be a lot of shirts and stuff made from it. That's just going to backfire. Backfire on the left like everything else has. But with that, let's move on to the next story. Putin breaks silence on the deadly plane crash of Prigozhin. Let's play a clip.
As for the aviation tragedy, first of all, I want to express my sincerest condolences to the families of all the victims. It is always a tragedy. Indeed, if there were, and the primary data indicate that there were employees of the Wagner PMC, I would want to note that these people made a significant contribution to our common cause of fighting the neo-Nazi regime in Ukraine. We remember this, we know it, and we will not forget it.
For the first time, Russian President Vladimir Putin publicly acknowledging the death of the man who led a rebellion against him. We are awaiting a Pentagon briefing next hour to learn more about the plane crash that apparently killed Wagner mercenary chief Yevgeny Prigozhin. Russian media reports say he was on a plane from Moscow to St. Petersburg when it suddenly went down. No official word on what may have caused the crash. Let's bring in Morgan Ortegas, former State Department spokesperson and founder of Polaris National Security. Morgan, let's put up on the screen the map of Prigozhin's flight. He took off from Moscow. He was supposed to fly to St. Petersburg, but in the Tver region, suddenly the transponder disappeared off of the flight controller's console. U.S. officials believe it was a surface-to-air missile fired inside Russia that took it down. Putin sending condolences to Prigozhin's family, saying, I knew Prigozhin for a very long time, since the early 1990s. He was a man with a complex destiny, and he made serious mistakes in life. One of them was to challenge Putin a couple of months ago, and it appears that he may have paid for that with his life.
Yep.
Yeah, the only thing that I am sad about today, John, is that his death was not more slow and painful. That's the kind of death that the Wagner forces have inflicted on civilians in the Middle East and Syria, where they are responsible for helping Russia slaughter tens of thousands of civilians. Not military, not combatants, but civilians.
That's the war for both sides. They hate, they don't care.
Where they prop up some of the most
Ukraine's the same way. They're flying drones over Moscow, they're getting shot down and hitting buildings and stuff. And then Zelensky, when he responded to it like a couple weeks ago, he's just like, now the war's coming to them. He doesn't even care. It's like, they're civilians though, man.
Regimes and slaughter civilians, women, children, it doesn't matter, anyone in their path. So today, I mean, listen, with Putin killing Prigozhin, I think what's interesting, John, is that you don't have me on today, 18 months after the invasion, to talk about what life is like for Ukrainians in Kyiv now that it's under Russian occupation. We're not talking about that. 18 months later, we're talking about how Putin had to kill his best friend.
Wow. Yeah. That's a good point.
We should point out that Kyiv is not under Russian occupation.
No, definitely not.
But Wagner was definitely a big force in a lot of that fighting in the eastern section of the country. President Biden was asked about this yesterday while he was on vacation at Tom Steyer's $18 million home in Tahoe. Here's what he said.
Yeah, of course, back on vacation.
I don't know for a fact what happened, but I'm not surprised.
Do you believe?
It's Casey's actually
not much that happens when Russia and Putin not behind.
So he says there's not much that happens in Russia that Putin's not behind.
It's funny, Biden. He's just like, oh, now that I actually went to Maui and they, they're not going to ask about that. I'll answer questions again. You're not a no comment like usual. He sucks.
Message was Putin sending with this, if indeed, as American officials suspect, he was behind it?
Well, I looked up an old quote from Putin. He once said something that's very timely and relevant today. He said that the only thing that is unforgivable is betrayal. And so he clearly has lived up to that moniker. But listen, Putin is somebody, this is not someone that operates in the community of civilized nations or should be treated as such, right? This is someone who has gone after reportedly former British spies in the United Kingdom, trying to poison them, trying to kill them. You know, he's on par with like Kim Jong-un, who poisoned his brother in an airport, right? This is a despicable, despotic regime that should be treated like North Korea, like Kim Jong-un. And he's lived up to that today. Putin and Prigozhin fighting is sort of like ISIS and Al-Qaeda fighting with each other. You just, you root for them both to win.
I'm Steve Duke.
Dang, that chick is vicious. But she's right, though. I mean, they're all evil. Ukraine's evil, too. All those guys over there are evil. You talk about the Ukraine, it's in a similar light. They want to go blow up civilians in Ukraine. They don't care who gets killed. As long as they're at war and they're like, okay, it doesn't have to be a military target or anything. To be fair to them, like, I know the president didn't do it, but they did let that one Russian guy live. The guy, he was like, a drone was about to drop a grenade on him, and he was like begging him for help. You know, it was pretty messed up. But they actually let him live. But after his 2 friends died, you know, got blown up. War is vicious. I just wish the war would just end. And now after the Wagner Group is completely out of commission, I would imagine now that Prigozhin's gone. So, like the woman was just saying in that report, the Wagner Group helped tremendously do these operations in Ukraine, and now they are gone. And I don't even know how the morale of all these people, like I was just saying, that guy who they let live and brought him to the Ukrainian side, that guy was claiming that Russia started firing mortars at him. They didn't even want him to get out of there. And it's crazy because he was like, I shouldn't even have came to Ukraine in the first place. I should have just faced prison. But yeah, he didn't. He went to the draft like they wanted him to, and then all his friends died. The guys he made friends with, they died like right before he surrendered. And he was like, I would much rather just go back. I'm going to go back to Russia and just go to jail. But they'll just kill him, right? He's such a he brought all this attention to himself, and about him getting like basically rescued by the Ukrainians because they guided him with the drone of where to go. And then, like I was saying, the Russians started firing mortars at him, according to the guy who surrendered. So yeah, the whole war is just insane, and I don't even see it even ending anytime. They should really negotiate. I can't see Russia like winning or Ukraine winning. So it's like people have called this a forever war, and it makes sense why. Because, yeah, when is it ever going to end? That's a really good question, isn't it? Both sides are just hell-bent on winning. But I don't see either side being able to get the traction. They're both low on munitions. The morale, I think, especially for Russia, must be really, really low. I don't know if there's a lot of reporting on that type of stuff. But, yeah, and especially as Ukraine starts sending drones over Moscow, I would imagine the general populace, after it's so long, 18 months, you would think the general populace would just be, just so fed up with it. But what's Putin going to do? Do you think Putin's actually going to end the war just because of his population doesn't like it? Right? He's just going to keep going on it, saying it's like neo-Nazis and all that stuff, which there are neo-Nazis in Ukraine, to be fair. But you think every Ukrainian is a neo-Nazi, right? He wants that land bridge. What is it, in the Donetsk region? That's what he wants. He wants that. He doesn't care about neo-Nazis or anything like that. That's just an excuse. Which, again, there are neo-Nazis fighting for the Ukrainian army. That's a fact. They have like Nazi tattoos and stuff. People don't like to talk about that because then it gives credence to Putin somehow. But it's like, not really. Like all these the civilians that have been killed or displaced and all these awful atrocities. I mean, the Wagner Group is just former prisoners, right? It's a mercenary group filled with former prisoners. So who knows what they did, right? They must have done a lot of really bad stuff to the civilians of Ukraine because Russia wants a land bridge. It's like, how messed up is that? I get it, like strategically against the United States and stuff, if they went to war with the United States, but now they just did all these atrocities. I can't see Putin really getting past this. If he even won the war in Ukraine, which again, I don't even see how he can even do that at this point. How could he even win? So, but then if he did, the world's still going to hate him and he's going to have to step down in some way, shape, or form, right? But how is he even going to beat Ukraine? If they were going to win, they would have won already. Now there's just so many landmines and everything. I don't get it. It is why even continue on? But Putin's going to look bad either way. If he loses, he's going to look awful. he kind of has to win, I think, because they might put him on trial. I don't know. Very interesting how this is actually going to end. Hopefully it's like some negotiations. Maybe Ukraine would attack Moscow, and the population would just get so fed up with it that they'll just be like, no, we're done. We're gonna riot. I mean, look at how close that Wagner group the coup almost it came so close to happening. I'm surprised Prigozhin just didn't go through with it, or just stay banished to Belarus. Why he's back in Russia? Putin must have lied to him and said, "Oh no, it's fine. I forgive you. We're friends. We've been friends since the '90s." And then bam, nope. I let you get comfortable. And I took you out. That's most likely what happened. Like some people are like, "Oh no, we don't know for sure if Russia did it or not." Yeah, but he must have, right? It's insane. But yeah, let's go to the next story. What do we have here? Trump shakes up legal team ahead of surrender to authorities in Georgia. We've kind of already talked about this, but it's a quick video, and we'll talk about what the reporters say and stuff like that. Let's play the clip.
We begin with former President Trump set to turn himself into authorities in Georgia today. Trump is shaking up his legal team just hours ahead of that surrender. Steve Sadow has now joined that legal team. This comes as Trump faces felony charges of conspiring to overturn the 2020 election results. Former Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani and 2 other Trump associates turned themselves in yesterday for their alleged efforts in the conspiracy. Senior investigative reporter Aaron Katersky, an ABC News contributor, attorney and former FBI agent Asha Rangappa joined me now for more. Aaron, what are you expecting to see when Trump turns himself in today?
We'll see the former president be driven here to the Fulton County Jail, but his actual booking process we will not see. The former president is expected to enter, perhaps with his new attorney, perhaps alone, and he will go through the motions just like any other criminal defendant, even though
we already know
Diane,
this. Actually, let's just skip this one. What's the point? We already saw all of this. We already saw what happened. Why even let these guys speculate? I wanted to play it because the one woman, she was like, "Oh, his new lawyer is good and everything, and he should listen to his new lawyers." But then he's like, "Oh, but his old lawyers, the ones getting indicted, they did stuff they shouldn't have done, the filings they did." It's just like, what are you talking about? All that stuff is legal. It's legal challenges that anyone should be able to do. But she's like, "No, those were bad lawyers. He should listen to his new legal team, that they're actually good lawyers. But his old ones weren't." Okay. She was an idiot. So that's the only reason why I wanted to play that. But there's more to that clip than I remembered. So we're just going to move on. And I just gave you the gist of it anyways. But now let's move to the next story. Rudy Giuliani speaks out after arraignment and mugshot. Let's play a clip.
We are back with a Fox News alert. Earlier this hour, former Mayor Rudy Giuliani left New York City for Georgia, where he'll be booked as an alleged co-conspirator in connection with former President Trump's election interference case.
This one's a mess. Doing it live. This is what happens. We're doing it live. So we put it back there. We can swap this out. I have the one from yesterday still on here. Mistake. Big mistake. All right, what are we doing here? Swapping this out. Bam. Do. Bear with me here. Bear with me. Rudy Giuliani. All right, awesome. All right, now let's play the correct clip, shall we?
I hate to say this, you have a mugshot now, but I said a few moments ago, I think this is a badge of honor. By the way, I like your approach here. You didn't smile. I know some PR people say, and actually some people think smiling is the way to go. Rob and I had a friendly debate about that. When you look at this picture, how do you process it? What do you think?
What I think is I'm fortunate to have a chance to fight for my country. And you fought for our country in the military. You're fighting for our country right now with what you're doing. When you get an opportunity like I do to, stand up for other people, take advantage of it. I mean, I realize what's going on, probably better than anyone. I realize how corrupt this is. I understand this system probably as well as anyone in the country, and I understand how they have perverted it. The idea that there are 4 cases going on, all brought by Democratic prosecutors against a main Republican candidate for president next year. You have to be some kind of an idiot not to realize that's politically motivated.
Yeah.
And a distortion of the criminal justice system.
And anti-democratic, totally anti-democratic. Do me a favor, Mr. Mayor. Stand by for just a moment. We have another portion of the Tucker Carlson conversation with President Trump.
If somebody else got in, other than me, they'll go at him just as viciously as they did me. These people are sick. They will go after them. And a lot of people say they won't be able to hold up. I do get credit for holding up quite well, I must tell you. I think it's...
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you get indicted, every week and stay cheerful?
It's...
He knows he's going to win.
It's a lot easier because I'm so high in the polls, because it means the people get it.
That's true. Imagine if he's behind.
He's right. They would come after anyone else. It's that weaponized. I mean, my goodness gracious, no one almost stands a chance. I think we're very fortunate, actually. Donald Trump is a unique character. Let's face it.
He is.
And although he does get under their skin in a way that maybe
he sure
another ordinary Republican wouldn't, but an ordinary Republican wouldn't have gone down there to shake things up like he did.
Yep. Facts.
Well, I mean, he is a remarkable human being. I mean, I represented him for 3.5 years under the worst circumstances. And I was amazed sometimes at his ability to function as well. I mean, he was, in my view, he was one of our great presidents in his first term. And he did it.
Definitely. How can he even...
I don't know how he did it. I mean, he was under investigation and attack every day.
He's a nasty guy. Mean tweets, but his policies.
And they would do it on purpose. They would leak every 2 or 3 weeks. The crooks that worked for Mueller would leak that they were going to indict Donald Jr. I figured out after the second one that they didn't have a case against Donald. I told them that.
Wow.
They were doing it on purpose.
They just lied.
They were doing it because they were hoping it would create a mistake. Every 3 weeks, the Washington Post would say, there are rumors that Donald Jr. is going to be indicted. He never was indicted. After the second rumor, I realized that this was a game, and it was intended to break him down. Now, that a legitimate person doesn't do that.
Right.
The only person who does that is some kind of sadistic monster.
Mr. Mayor, I want to jump in and take you back to 2008 or so when you ran for president. You were actually the #1 Republican for the better part of a year. Do you remember the first debate? This is they're trying to make a big deal out of it. I have a feeling the first debate of a primary season isn't necessarily all that decisive. What are your thoughts on what's happening tonight? And do you remember your first Republican primary presidential debate?
Oh, I sure do. Chris Matthews tried to take me out.
Oh, yeah?
He even admitted it after. He said to me, tell me the difference between the Sunnis and the Shiites. Because, as a mayor, I supposedly knew nothing about foreign policy. I said, well, Chris, do you want me to give you the historical difference or the current one? So he said, well, pick one. Well, I said, historically, it was a debate over whether the Grand Imam should be a direct blood descendant of Muhammad or he should be voted.
And that's the Sunnis, right? The Sunnis believe that there's a...
Yeah, and that was their original division.
Okay.
And then, of course, it became much more complex than that. And there's even a difference in practice. One is a much more rigid, very, very...
Sure. No. Mr. Mayor, it's all coming back. You knocked it out of the park. Hey, if
I know I did.
Forgive me, I got to bring it back to the situation, the arrest, tomorrow's situation, Donald Trump's arrest. There are 19 defendants. Is there any talk, and I know Fani Willis said, well, we're going to try them all together. Is there any, are you going to work as a team, all the defendants, join forces here? At least some of you, same lawyers, maybe same
They are lawyers.
Shared expenses. Anything you can tell us along those lines?
It has to, first we
They're
have
to
to see whether it stays with her. I am pretty certain, Greg, that it's going to be removed. I'll file my petition next week or the week after. The 3 have been filed already. I've talked to the president this morning, but we're not supposed to talk about the case. Have to do it through his lawyers. I'm pretty certain, though, he will move to remove it. And
how messed up is that? The defendants are his lawyers, and he can't talk about the case with his past lawyers. He has new lawyers now. He just changed his lawyer, like yesterday to a new one. But he can't even legally talk to his former lawyers because they indict these other lawyers too, and then can't talk about the case. Stuff is messed up. They're obviously just making all this up just to, get Trump. They're evil.
Which will make a very big difference, and I think we'll have a much better chance at a motion to dismiss, which we can all join in, of course. We would all join in a motion to dismiss. It's really the same infirmity for all of us. I mean, in different ways. He's being prosecuted violation of his First Amendment right to advocate for office, and I'm being prosecuted to exercising under the Sixth Amendment right to defend my counsel, my client.
But now you're indicted because
remember what I said,
insanity.
Mr. Mayor? One day you're going to get the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and I want to be at that ceremony. Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
God bless you.
Yeah, very interesting. That's cool. They filing motions and stuff. What's interesting is most of these defendants, the 19 defendants, they're lawyers. It's insane. It's like, okay, let's try to indict all these lawyers. It's like they kind of know what they're doing. Yeah, very, very interesting. Like I always say, though, it's probably not going to go anywhere. That would be funny if they just threw out the case because all these good lawyers, but they're not going to, right? The prosecutors just wants to get them, and the judge probably wants to get them. But I don't even know if the jury in Fulton County, because, it is in Georgia, so they might not be able to get like what they want. With like the D.C. and New York and everywhere, they're probably the jury in New York. They're just going to vote to indict Trump or convict Trump no matter what, most likely, even if it's not legal or illegal. And the judge in D.C. doesn't like Trump and everything. So I guess we'll see how it plays out in all of these. But the Fulton County one's probably the hardest one to win as far as I understand it. And then the RICO case, they're really hard to convict. And now Trump just got a lawyer who's really experienced in RICO cases, so it's just stupid. It's a waste of time. It's election interference. It's a waste of time, and it's backfiring. That's what's ironic, is they think they're going to interfere with the election, and it's going to go their way, but the polls just keep rising for Trump. So he's just going to keep getting more benefit from it. And even if he gets convicted, what are they going to do? Put him on house arrest, like I was saying earlier? They're going to put him on house arrest because the Secret Service has to protect him. It's in the Constitution. So what are they going to have? 30, 40 Secret Service go to jail with Trump? I don't know. It's just stupid. It makes no sense. That's what I say about Biden, too. He's the president. You're going to go after him. And how's the Secret Service going to enforce that? I guess you just put him on house arrest and say he's convicted. But you can't go put him on like Rikers Island or something. How is the Secret Service going to defend him? And that's in the Constitution that they get jurisdictional priority over like everybody. The Secret Service does, and then you get Secret Service for life as president. So how would they logistically even do all this? It's fake. It doesn't even make any sense. But let's move on to the next story. Speaking of Biden getting convicted, Biden could face investigation over his response to the Hawaii wildfires. Let's check out a clip.
Well, all week, critics have hit President Biden on that bizarre and heartless comparison he made between a small kitchen fire at his house several years ago to Maui's fire disaster. Now the administration's response could face a congressional investigation. Here's House Speaker Kevin McCarthy.
I'm very concerned about the response. We still have hundreds of individuals that are missing. I think there's going to have to be a congressional investigation in response to what happened now. How could we lose that many Americans in today's age? And the federal response seems very delayed. The president's response, I have no comment. That's unacceptable.
Survivors of now the deadliest wildfire in modern American history are sharing their stories. Some say they had no choice but to disobey those mandatory evacuation orders because the only road out of Lahaina was barricaded. The gridlock got even worse when drivers abandoned their cars to jump into the Pacific Ocean. everything was on fire.
That's
Survivors
so
are
messed
blaming
up.
both the local and federal governments for the response. And Clay Travis is the founder of Outkick. Look, I follow you on social media. I know you've talked with a lot of people. What are you hearing about how things were handled by Biden's people?
Well, first of all, let's give credit to Fox News' Will Cain, who I think did an incredible job, raising $2 million for survivors in the Maui area.
That's incredible.
About. This is indefensible. And Harris, if you contemplate and just think about the way that George W. Bush was treated in the aftermath of Katrina, the way that Donald Trump was treated by the media in the aftermath of the hurricanes, and he went to Puerto Rico.
And both of those were disasters.
Correct.
Right?
And our federal government actually responded far better to both of those events than we have to Maui. Harris, I heard
and they were
earlier, and this remains the fact.
Trump, I don't even think
Over
he did a bad
800
job.
people are still missing.
I know.
It's possible that 1,000 people nearly lost
it's probably
their lives.
apparently
in
a lot of
this
them are
event. And
children,
one of the
according to
reasons
Tim
we
Pool.
can't find any trace is because this wildfire was so destructive. For Joe Biden to show up and say this reminded him of a kitchen fire 19 years ago.
Biden is
for
awesome.
him
He
to
fell
say
asleep
his
in the victims
1967
meeting.
Corvette and his cat and his wife in a 20-minute kitchen fire were somehow in any way analogous to what happened in Maui. It's a disgrace.
Well, and I think you were getting there, and so we'll land the plane on this. Part of the worst of it all is that the other media are not taking responsibility for telling the truth about the story and the president's response to what's happening on the ground. He could have stayed longer than the 5 hours that it took him to fly there from Lake Tahoe. I mean, look at the time. He was on the plane a few minutes longer than he was with the people of Hawaii. It's not just embarrassing. It is heartless. I have called him quite possibly the world's only living heart donor. But it gets worse when the media act the same way. Like they don't care.
They called him on CNN the empathizer in chief. They not only said that he did a good job.
He wouldn't even comment and just smirked about it.
He was on his beach vacation, no commented a reaction to Hawaii.
Yeah, and he would smirk and then say no comment.
Yeah, that's right. Continuing vacation. He was in a Pilates class when Prigozhin got shot down and said he couldn't comment on that either. What is this guy doing on a day-to-day basis?
Look, you may have heard me say
Worst
it,
president
like
ever. That's saying a lot.
He's done.
It's sad.
He's done before he leaves the job. It is very sad.
And he's still running for 2024, though.
New information from Hunter Biden's infamous laptop now. This time it shows he traveled with his then Vice President father to more than 12 foreign countries. They were official trips for his dad. In 2010, Hunter emailed a business associate about a proposed meeting in Serbia, saying that he could catch a ride there on taxpayer-funded Air Force Two. Hunter's name came up at the Republican presidential debate last night.
Going into business
the laws apply to everybody.
Taxpayer
and when
money.
Hunter Biden fills out a fake application, a false application for a gun permit, and then is facing a 10-year mandatory minimum, which was mandated by legislation sponsored by his father. And then you have a Justice Department that walks away from those charges. We're telling people that the law doesn't apply to everybody. In the Christie administration, he would go to jail for 10 years.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy warning this week that he would consider an impeachment inquiry now if the special counsel in the Hunter Biden case tries to block House investigations. Clay.
There should 100% be a impeachment proceeding, I believe, brought against Joe Biden. And we have talked about this, and maybe one of the most dishonest things that the media is doing now is constantly saying there's no evidence that Joe Biden was involved in Hunter Biden's business dealings.
So
Hunter
ridiculous.
Talks about his dad in his business dealings all the time.
That laptop screwed him so bad.
Archer's testimony 20 times. We know there are allegations that Burisma paid millions of dollars to potentially both Hunter and Joe Biden. That's an under oath allegation. We know certainly that there were a ton of connections between Hunter and Joe Biden. I just ask this question. For anybody out there who has ever run a business, how many times has your dad called into your business meetings if you were not in business with him?
Never.
There's not hardly anybody listening right now who's had their dad call 20 times into business meetings if they weren't directly in a business relationship with their father.
No, my dad was said, baby, I already had my career. Good luck
Right?
with that.
Yeah, no kidding. And most people, Harris, and that to me goes straight to the essence of why we need to be unpeeling. I've been saying this, and I think it's true. If you look at the allegations against Richard Nixon, you look at the allegations against Bill Clinton, and the allegations against Donald Trump, Joe Biden has been credibly accused by under oath witnesses of more severe crimes in office than Nixon, Clinton, and Trump combined, in my opinion.
Clay Travis with the last word.
Yeah, he's
Good
right.
To see you. Thank you.
It's crazy. Very, very interesting. I hope they do investigate Biden over his handling of the Maui situation. It's way worse. I would say it's probably worse than George Bush. George Bush commented on it, right? He did a terrible job, but he commented on it. Biden won't even, he would smirk. He wouldn't just say no comment when they would ask him about the Maui situation. He would be like, no comment, and go run away to his helicopter. It's like it's just a nasty, nasty, nasty person. I don't know. Maybe he just forgot and didn't know what was happening because he's so gone. I don't know. But yeah, he just didn't care and just no comment. Oh my, 1,000 people are missing. The whole island is burning in Hawaii. But when I go on vacation, quit asking me questions. Like, why are you even running for 2024? This guy is such a dick. Like, okay, I know I can't do the job. I'm not qualified at all because I got too old. And even before he got old, he's a plagiarizer and just always a public life guy. Never even ran a business or had a job in the private sector. But yeah, now it's just like, oh, and I want to be the president again. He can't even do the job at all. Like I said, he's such a dick. Like, go get out of there. People, the president has a job. He botched Afghanistan and everything, and then just all the stuff he does. He's trying to still get student loan forgiveness, even though the Supreme Court struck it down. He's like, okay, no, I'm just going to keep trying for it. So I could get votes for another 4 years when I'll be like 85 years old when I get out of office, if I win again. Like, come on, bro. You can't do anything even to help. He goes to Maui and just makes a fool out of himself, falls asleep, makes really bad jokes, and then he's only there for 5 hours. People are all flipping him off and stuff. It's like, bro, he's lost it. And he's lost the election before it even got started. People say Newsom and stuff is going to come through and be the nominee. I don't know. Biden really wants it, but if not, Biden's the nominee, there's no way he can win. I don't think the left in general can win. Look at Chicago. People in Chicago, New York, leftists are turning on Democrats like crazy because of the immigration issue. They're spending all their money. There's homeless people in like the black communities in Chicago. There's so much homeless people there on their streets. And then the city wants to go and give the migrants the houses that the black people live in. It's like they're just all turning against them. They shouldn't have voted for that. They just voted for that new mayor in Chicago. They got Lori Lightfoot, I don't remember his name, but they got him in there now, and they just voted for him. They should have voted for someone else because then he gets in there, and all of that surplus money they had, probably because of COVID, they spent it all within a few months on migrants. It's like, could you imagine that? Your city actually has a surplus. Like I said, it's probably from COVID. But they finally have a surplus, and then they go spend it all on people that aren't even citizens. And these guys are from Chicago. They've been there their whole lives. They've lived there their whole lives. They've contributed to the community. They've contributed to taxes. And how does their mayor repay them? Just goes and gives the money to people that shouldn't be there. They should be back in their home countries and trying to fix that. That's what I always say. Why are people coming here when you can stay in your own country and try to fix that? Right? But no, just come to America. And then it's funny because the leftists are like, America's horrible. I hate America. Why don't they go trade places with these migrants if they want migrants so bad and they think America's so bad? Right? You go there. Okay? And then they can be here. But no, it doesn't work like that because they don't know the culture here. Most of them don't know English. They can't get the same jobs. But Americans still try to help them, which it's crazy because it's like entitlements, like welfare, right? It's like you think you're helping people, but you're not. These kids that come over with these weird guys, and now they're sold into silver. They're basically just sold into slavery, you know? Like, let's be honest. Indentured servitude, you could say that, but it's I don't even know. That's probably even too good for it. And then a word for it. And then they just have to work for these coyotes for free for all this time. Do you think that's better than their country? They could have grown up there, and it probably would have been better. They weren't actual slaves. They could vote for a new president, and maybe they can make it better. No, what are they going to do here? Now they're growing up here, great country, but they're not even getting any of the advantages of it. They have to just go and work for people for free, send it back, then they take their money. Maybe they send it back to their family a little bit. That's messed up. And they push for this, and they think it's all good and all this stuff. But yeah, everyone's turning on the left, and they should, because this is the policies they go for. And this is what Biden does. He makes a fool out of himself in Hawaii, does all these terrible policies, and now the left is turning on him and everything. Nobody even likes the guy. But I'll leave it there. Let's move on to the next story. Bud Light finally apologizes for the Dylan Mulvaney debacle. Let's check out a clip.
I hate to say this, you have a mugshot now, but I said a few moments ago, I think this is a badge of honor.
I changed up all my stuff earlier, so these clips are all messed up. I'm sorry about that.
By the way, I like your approach here. You didn't.
My rundown and my stuff is I changed all my buttons earlier, so I'm guessing I just messed one of them up and it played the wrong one earlier. But we'll get this solved here real quick. Interesting how that happened. Yeah, I must have clicked on the wrong one earlier, and then I didn't realize it. Here we go. Where are you? Bud Light. Beautiful. All right, let's try this again, shall we? On a studio mode. Awesome. We're doing it live, episode 3, you know. we're learning. But yeah, what's the story? Bud Light finally apologizes for the Dylan Mulvaney debacle. Here is a clip.
We finally have an apology from Bud Light, and it's an interesting one. It's one
actually haven't
way
seen this yet.
I guess, apologize. I
don't even know.
I'm not
going to react
really
live.
sure that this is going to
Doing it live.
work out for them like they had hoped. That said, Modelo Especial now is officially America's best-selling beer as it dethrones Bud Light.
Yeah, UFC
in the wake
sponsor.
of the Dylan Mulvaney controversy, as its sales dipped 26.7% year-on-year. Now, we've already seen this headline multiple times, week over week over week. You know, it
never ends.
Trend has continued.
Keeps getting worse, yeah.
But now, apparently, it's official. I don't know what makes it official. Let's see. Modelo Especial has officially triumphed over Bud Light as America's best-selling beer, according to new data from grocery stores and retailers. Sales of Modelo have so far this year surpassed Bud Light's, whose sales slumped in the wake of the Dylan controversy.
That makes sense.
The Mexican lager.
The friends that I watch UFC with, they always used to bring Bud Light. Now they bring Modelo.
Light in off-premise beer sales in May, June, and July, holding a 9.1% share for the past 4 weeks as Bud Light slipped to a 7% share. New York-based Constellation Brands, who distribute Modelo, posted an 11% increase in sales in its second quarter earnings, boosted by its beer business, which also includes Corona. Bud Light volumes were also down 26.7% as it struggles to put the public relations disaster partnering with prominent influencer behind them. Well, I mean, we've been saying this for months. I mean, they just have to apologize, and we're going to see what their apology
It's not going
was.
to matter, even if they did. That's
if
what I've
it's
been saying for
sufficient,
months. But you could do something.
I don't
Give it a
think
shot.
It's going to be. But what's interesting is they should have just owned it immediately.
Yeah.
Like
It wouldn't have
Heckler &
mattered
Koch,
that much,
when
though.
they had that tweet. Maybe they even meant to do. Maybe it was all PR stunt. It was handled too perfectly. But Bud Light refuses to do that because they're a global company, and of course they must spread the message.
Got to spread the
Modelo's
wokeness.
victory seemed
That's how you
inevitable
make
for at
money.
least the last several months, but the timeline accelerated since Bud Light's trends dramatically got worse in April. Benji Steinman, president of Beer Marketers Insight, told CNN. It happened far faster than most people expected. Greg Gallagher, vice president of brand marketing for Constellation, told CNN that the company has been enjoying an incredible run of success and has been aiming to expand the dominance it has with Hispanic drinkers, not Latinx, to more demographics. Our growth is maintaining at the core, blah, 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 blah.
No one uses that.
Anheuser-Busch, Bud Light's parent company, has lost a whopping $390 million in U.S. sales in the wake of its partnership. The world's largest beer brewer blamed the volume decline of Bud Light for the drop of revenue in the second quarter. Well, no kidding.
Yeah, obviously.
In a recent statement from the company, announced that sales to U.S. retailers had plunged 14%, adding that it had been underperforming the industry. And it's only going to get worse now, of course, as football season starts and people get that normal consumption increases. If you look at this too, sales slumps at Target and Bud Light may fuel more boycotts. Good. Good.
Yes. Very good.
I think they absolutely
Disney's
should.
next.
They should. The regular people have been empowered. And I think that you have to still pick your spots pretty carefully. You don't want to be overreacting to every little thing. But if you pick your spots wisely and you can be well coordinated, you can make a change. Target sale decline over the last 3-month period, for the very first time in 6 years. The company announced last week, attributing its loss in part to what the company's executive vice president described as a strong reaction to their Pride Month display.
Yeah,
an anti-LGBTQ boycott. It wasn't anti-LGBTQ. Erupted in May over the company's Pride merchandise, prompting it to remove some items from its store after employees faced harassment. Now,
friendly bathing suits, Pride stuff, gay Pride stuff in the kids section. It's serves them right. You want to have some gay Pride stuff? I don't think anyone cares. Put it somewhere not front and center, and don't be putting it in the kids aisle. It just seems like you just want to push this all on kids. People have been doing the gay Pride stuff for many, many years, and people haven't cared that much. But now it just kind of just hit a breaking point, and people are just sick of it.
I don't think it's okay if people were giving the business to employees there. They don't make those decisions, and working retail isn't exactly the most fulfilling job on the planet. I've worked retail.
He makes a good point, but I did see this one woman who's like, "Oh no, I don't remember what she's saying, but she was saying a bunch of woke stuff." He's like, "Really? You think this is okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's fine. Who cares if you were showing it to kids and everything? I don't care." So I don't know. I mean, he was pretty respectful, and that's how you should be. I mean, there's no even reason to fight with these people. Just who cares? I've heard of I don't even know. Maybe this is just fake news, but I heard about someone that went down there and started ripping signs down and stuff. Don't do that. It just makes you look bad, and it's not going to solve anything. It's just going to make them double down. Just go and don't spend money there. Eventually, they'll just go out of business and go spend money with a business that's similar that doesn't do this type of stuff.
For many years.
No reason to get into fights.
And you don't make the decisions. I remember people coming when I was working at Walmart being like, "You guys got to unionize, man." And I was like, "Bro, I'm in college. I'm just trying to get enough money to make sure I have gas in my car to drive to school tomorrow. I don't really care about your big geopolitical opinions about Walmart." Anyway.
Yep.
The sales dent to Target marks the latest sign of success for right-wing consumer advocates following the month-long slump for Bud Light that coincided with the boycott of course, Dylan Mulvaney. Consumer boycotts typically fail, but the recent protests have thrived. And
it's funny they got to throw that in there. They usually fail.
Division, exacerbated by the onset of the 2024 president election, disagree, and supercharged by social media. That part I agree with. Moreover, the successes could fuel further attempts emboldening anti-LGBTQ advocates, activists, impairing companies
label stuff.
Added. Well, I mean, I think, look, again, I think you want to be careful and not overreact to every little thing, not just because you may think it's important and I don't, or someone else might not, but because you only can. If you're, it's like if you become the boy they call cried wolf. You pick your spots and you go hard, and you make a dent, and then you move on to something else. If you spread out your forces too thinly, you're not going to have enough buy-in to actually have an effect. Now, of course, they're talking about Gerald Davis.
I mean, maybe if you only spend money. So Netflix, do you cancel? Let's say you cancel Netflix and Disney Plus, right? And you go with like Daily Wire, like Mug Club or something like that, and you just put your money elsewhere or just save that money. I don't know. I don't fully agree with him. I see what he's saying. If you just go to where are you going to shop and everything. So, I mean, I agree with him, but at the same time, I'm like, you can't just cancel Disney Plus and just stick with the stuff that you do agree with. I don't even know if it matters, like, if you agree with it, really. It's just the wokeness and shoving stuff down your throat. That's what just really gets annoying.
It's a professor of management at University of Michigan Graduate School of Business who studies consumer boycotts said the possible policy shift would energize, again, anti-LGBTQ. That's not what this boycotts were about.
No, it's not.
If the company caves and the boycotters claim the scalp, you'll see more of it, Davis said. Actually, you could really look at it this way and say, I mean, Bud Light never caved, did they? I mean, we've got their apology here. It's going to be interesting, but they never really caved. They just kept on keeping on. They had this mealy mouth kind of tweet along the way, but really they just kept their head down and
it didn't work.
Kept spreading the message.
Sponsoring
during
gay
recent
pride
boycotts
events
against Anheuser-Busch and Target, the protests gained momentum after initial response from the companies were perceived as conciliatory by some LGBTQ advocates. Well, what ended up happening was, when Target moved certain merchandise to the backs of the stores, then you actually had woke leftists, that people were calling in threats, all this allegedly, all this kind of stuff. There were email campaigns that were going out saying that, you had to evacuate the stores, all this kind of stuff.
So dramatic.
Well,
gay people being dramatic.
I don't support that from either side, but here we have Bud Light offers unique apology to beer drinkers. The beer brand has lost about 30% of its sales, of course, since we know Dylan the brand destroyer was involved.
Dylan
haven't
the
seen
brand
much of
destroyer,
Dylan lately, have you?
Mulvaney. No.
I've got a feeling. No, I'm going to do that. I've got a feeling that it's going to be a long time till you see Dylan's face on any major brand that isn't a makeup company.
It's never going to happen again.
I feel like makeup companies are relatively insulated against this because they've convinced a lot of men that they need to wear makeup too now. But anyway, the ill-fated promotion, an attempt to expand Anheuser-Busch's brand into the 0.01% of the population, failed on multiple levels. Of course, not only did they piss everyone off, but then the company did not exactly have Dylan's back once the backlash hit. Those two things led to the sales slump, which in turn saw the brand fall behind Modelo as the best-selling beer. Since the backlash hit, Budweiser has been trying to take business as usual approach. The company has been posting on social media as it usually has, which has prompted as many mocking and hateful responses as respectful ones. Essentially, that's one way to put it. They are just getting endlessly ratioed.
Yes.
It's a tough position for any brand. Not really. They could have just apologized.
Or just not done
can't
this
directly
in the first
apologize
place.
because that would say that partnering with a trans person was wrong. Disagree with that. The company was a mistake for the brand based on the makeup of its core audience, but the traditional apology would itself have been wrong and create a whole new set of problems. Well, again, it wasn't just the fact that you work with Dylan that led to the boycott. I mean, that was the initial kind of flashpoint, I would say. But the reality is, it was everything else after that. Alyssa Heinerschneid calling their, customers fratty, and the brand was out of touch, and all this kind of stuff.
Why does that matter?
Super rich people.
So what's so funny about these woke people that work for these companies? Who cares? Who cares if it's fratty, the customer? Who cares? You have customers. You just make good beer and make money. Remember when it used to be awesome in America, where that's what people worried about? They wanted to make money, support their families, support their workers. That's what they wanted. Now it's all about some message and, if I work here, I got to make sure that my customers are me. It's like, who cares? It's what Disney's doing. Like, everyone that's going to be a customer left of Disney is just going to be some woke idiot. Like, why do you care? Like, just make the product that people like, and that's what you do. They don't have to be you. They're not like doing what I'm doing or the quartering or something where like the people that watch me are obviously going to be people that are like-minded. But if I'm making like music or movies, you don't have to agree with me on stuff to like and watch it. Like I said, like political commentary stuff, you're probably not going to like it if you don't like agree with me to some extent. You're going to go listen to people that you agree with, make good points about your beliefs and everything. But music, movies, beer, Target, like where you're shopping, you shouldn't line up. It doesn't matter if you line up if you want to go to Target. It's just like I'm just gonna go buy some groceries, and I need a lighter or something, right? I need some tissues, whatever it is, right? That's what you do. You shouldn't have to be lining up politically, but that's what these people in these companies think. They're like, oh, okay, I want all the customers just to agree with me politically, so I'm just going to go do stuff that I know is going to anger some of the customers, but then they won't be the customers anymore. Yeah, then you lose your job. You lose your livelihood, and then you lose your workers' livelihoods because you want to get political. What a weird time. What a weird time in this country right now.
That never had to struggle for anything in their life, trying to pretend they understand what it's like to be blue collar. Of course, so instead of an apology, Anheuser-Busch is taking a different track. The beer company is now giving away free stuff to customers as a de facto I'm sorry, as if a spouse who opted to hang out with friends when their partner was expecting to be taken to a fancy dinner buys flowers as a peace offering.
What?
Well, the giveaway is
Who wrote
generous.
this article?
The question is of will it will work is open. Anheuser-Busch has had to cut workers due to falling Bud Light sales. That forces the company to keep trying to win customers back, even if one effort or another fails. For the most part, Budweiser has opted to return to its classic marketing tropes. Think Americana, football, and people.
Yeah, you should have stuck with that the whole time.
Now the company has begun a new contest.
Their new ads are stupid. The grunting guys, they just they act like their customers are all idiots. The one that's like everyone's a stupid moron. And then the other one, the guy's grunting. Like, I can't even stand up without grunting. Lazy. So they're just lazy idiots. That's who they're trying to attract. Hey, are you a lazy idiot? Here, you have a Bud Light. Modelo doesn't do that. They're like, hey, are you a fight fan? You like UFC? The official beer of the UFC, Modelo. Get a Modelo right now. That's legit. That's how you do it. You're just like, oh, you a stupid idiot. You should have a Bud Light. No one wants to see themselves as an idiot, even if you are an idiot, right? So weird. Well, I don't know. It's so weird.
People willing to turn over their email addresses get a chance to win free NFL Sunday ticket subscriptions or gift cards to the NFL
It's
store.
Not going to work. Who cares?
To participate,
I'll just buy that instead of buying Bud Light.
And then accept their marketing forever and ever. I mean, it says here, in many ways, Budweiser is trying to change the narrative around its brand. While many make good efforts are transparent, they might be working. Well, it's difficult to say. Not where I live.
It's not
the fact
working.
Is that they're giving away
the people
free stuff to try
that
to
haven't
get
left
people
aren't
to
going
come
to
back.
leave. They don't care.
Is it just maybe they had that timed anyway, but I'm not exactly sure that that's an apology that's going to ring true to people that have abandoned the brand. But
no.
Hey, maybe will a chance to win free NFL Sunday ticket work for you to come back and drink Bud Light? I suspect you're leaving a like right now and saying that you would agree that is not enough. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I hope I will earn your subscription.
Did he even ever
today.
give
There's
the
a button down
apology?
below.
What's this guy doing?
Subscribe or follow, and I hope that I'll earn that. And we'll talk to you again real soon.
What the hell? Should have watched this beforehand because quartering, like, we'll talk about, did they even apologize? He just lied about all this. I can't even make a video out of this. It'll be on the podcast, but I'm not going to go clip this out like I planned to. He said they finally apologized. I'm like, there was no apology there, was there? What the hell is that, Jeremy? Come on, bro. So what happens, trying to improve my podcast, and it makes it worse. I was trying to improve the podcast all day, so, I redid some stuff, and made an error there with some of the playing. And I don't mind that. But usually I watch the videos throughout beforehand, and today I'm just like, okay, I just really got to get the stream down for the Trump surrendering. So I just had to get it. I had to get it started, and I was messing with a bunch of other stuff. So that's what I did. And then it's like, well, the Bud Light finally apologizes. I was like, oh man, this is going to be cool. I'll watch it live with my viewers, and let's watch the apology. And it just never even came. What is that? Bro, what a... Now I'm worried about the next one I have from him. I have a Jordan Peterson one from him, but hopefully that one's a bit better. But before we get to that one, let's move on to this story. James O'Keefe is being investigated by Democrat DA. Interesting, isn't it? Let's play the clip.
The founder of Project Veritas, a conservative nonprofit known for its hidden camera stings, is under investigation by a suburban New York prosecutor's office in the latest fallout after his ouster from the group over allegations that he mistreated workers. They're not going to say exactly what
we're
it's
doing
all
it
about
live,
or what he's being investigated for. And maybe this goes nowhere.
Live reaction.
But I'm not going to ignore this because we don't want to be frogs in a pot boiling.
Exactly.
James O'Keefe had a number of investigations that aided Donald Trump. There were videos of, there was one video we had where a woman was filling out ballots for another woman. Remember that one? There was one where a guy was in his car saying, look at all these ballots that I've collected. I get paid for these. Now, this is not exactly what I meant. What I thought was likely to happen first, and they haven't charged James O'Keefe or anything like that. My prediction is not necessarily Tucker, but somebody who was in communication with the Trump legal team, who was then going on TV and going on the internet and advocating for Trump's election claims and assisting and rallying people, or some of these people who were saying things like encouraging people to go out January 6th and literally be violent. Those are the people I think they go after
doing
first.
that?
But
encouraging them to be violent.
This is still in the periphery of what I thought might happen. James O'Keefe, Project Veritas. You know, look, this is interesting. Fox shutters Tucker Carlson. They shut him down. So he goes and does his own thing. They're furious about it. They try to sideline James O'Keefe. He resists. He then launches his own organization. They cannot stop him. The only thing they can do is make some bogus charges against them and stop him through legal force. I mean, the reality is they're so desperate, they're losing. That's why they're trying these tactics. Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you, I see them going after James O'Keefe because of this.
I'm going to introduce just a slight note of skepticism on this, which is it is possible that James O'Keefe violated, New York state labor laws, right?
Well, sure, a lot of things are possible, but I really don't believe that.
Sure. Okay, but my point is that precisely because they've become so politicized, these kinds of investigations, that no one can, like even if he did it, you're like, oh, it must be because of his speech.
They're suspect.
And that's the problem, because I care about labor rights and I want labor laws upheld. But in a case like this, and given the backdrop of how the sort of official left has behaved, you can't help but think this is a kind of political persecution, even if it may be a legitimate case. And I know you're saying it probably isn't, but I'm just saying it could be.
Anybody, if you offered someone the opportunity to place a bet, is this a political prosecution or legitimate? Anybody willing to take the legitimate bet, they're welcome to play at my poker games.
I mean, I think that you're on something with your broader point. And I've mentioned this before. The fact that there's so many people now that don't trust the government. And look, I've been a libertarian kind of dude for at least like almost 15 years or so. And so I'm real quick to be like, actually. Government no, and I want to cut the government.
I've been like libertarian for like 10 years now. A while. Huh. Time sneaks up on you.
Blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to the average, what you'd call normie, I really think COVID and the vaccine has really, really opened up a massive new group of people that just don't trust the government. They just don't believe what they're telling, what the government says and stuff. And I'm not sure what that means for the country. Like, low trust societies are violent societies. Low trust societies are societies that have weaker economies. There's more just more friction. You need more lawyers in low trust societies. You need more courts. Everything is harder in a low trust society. And the more that we do things that separate people from each other and make people look at class differences and race differences and stop focusing on the fact that, we have liberal principles that unify us as a country. We don't need to worry about your skin color. We don't need to worry about your religion. All you have to do is understand liberal principles and accept the fact that people should be allowed to decide how their own lives should be structured. And it's easy for us to get along, but if we can't if we can't allow people to live their lives the way that they see fit, I don't know how you fix the problem of a low trust society. You know?
Well, but so here. I mean, to talk about a little bit about the book. Precisely, there are possibilities for private coercion in the marketplace, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a kind of free market theory that imagines that we're still in the late 18th century, and you just have, independent farmers and mechanics and artisans who can trade at arm's length.
So kind of I get what he's saying, but it's kind of nonsense. The reason why private companies can go and do in effect culture and everything so well is the opposite, in my opinion. The government's gotten so big that it's so easy to use your money to go and affect government. Because it's so big. Back in the 1800s and stuff, it's like, what do you do? Back then, the government was so small. If you were a huge corporation, like $1 billion company, back then money, the government's not gonna help you. There's no government. But now the government's so huge, you go and start lobbying and stuff, bam, you can get a lot of stuff done from a lot of different people. But if the government wasn't so big and didn't have that power, then the private industry wouldn't be able to yield that power.
That is not what the American kind of economy looks like. Most industries are super concentrated. There's 2 or 3 predominant sellers, and everyone else, especially if you're a worker, you're at the mercy of
because the government keeps you
the
down with
wage
regulations.
Is no longer
it's hard to compete.
The perfect crystallization of supply and demand. It's an index of relative.
It's like that thing that what happens with McDonald's and Starbucks. They're all for a nationwide minimum wage, $15 an hour, but why don't they pay them $15 an hour everywhere now? Oh no, it's only if everyone else has to. That's why they're for it, because they can afford it no matter what, right? But they'll just raise their prices. They're McDonald's, but a small mom and pop, they'll put a lot of restaurants out of business, less competition. That's why all these industries are consolidated now. It's so hard to get into all these industries. There's so many regulations. There's all these application fees. It's insanity. But if we didn't have that, that's if you see industries like websites, there's so many websites that compete with each other for different stuff because there's not a bunch of regulations on the internet like there is everywhere else. So it's easier to, like, Amazon's big, but they are very, very, very far from 100% market share. Yeah, they're big because they do good work, but they're not, just eating up everything and making it. The government hasn't made it impossible to create an e-retailer. So, yeah, there can be competition. But if you go look at other industries where there's a ton of regulation, yeah, it's easier for them to consolidate because it's so hard to create a company that can compete.
Bargaining power. And so those are issues that government can help with.
Get rid of it.
I believe should. So, for example, the fact that in this country, half of fast food workers have to rely on public welfare to make ends meet, that is not good. We have what's called a low-wage, high-welfare society. Why is that bad? By the way, it's not when we call it high welfare. It's not like the welfare benefits are actually especially generous. In some ways, they're quite miserly. But it just means that as a share of income for kind of the lower third of the country, the share of the income they need to make ends meet, welfare makes up a big part of that. And wages are not sufficient. So what we're doing is, as taxpayers, we're subsidizing.
This guy. So no, I don't agree with this either. If there wasn't as much taxes to pay for welfare, right, then their wages would be higher. They could demand higher wages. But when all the money's for your taxes all your money's going to taxes, that's why they need welfare.
Low wages,
communism,
and at the same time, workers in that position are not only subject to the whims of the boss, but they're also subject to the whims of the welfare administrator, who gets more and more powerful because he controls the fate of more and more people.
That's true.
Right. So those are problems where we need to work together democratically to try to solve. And if people are constantly thinking that government is out to get them to try to impose irrational mask mandates and so forth,
that's what
it becomes
does,
harder.
No matter
what. And so this is I'm really just kind of dittoing your point.
Sure.
Because there are problems.
Doesn't sound like
collective action.
Yeah, and if you don't believe in the government, if you have a society that just generally doesn't believe that the other people that they're trying to work with are actually looking to actually solve problems as opposed to just acquire or amass power for themselves or their constituents. I mean, people complain about where the country's heading and stuff. Well, the best way to make sure that the country is heading in a good direction is to be able to trust that you can enter into contract and you can, your economy is going to work well.
I agree with Phil, but that other guy.
Your neighbors aren't going to steal your stuff, and the government's not going to take your property.
And where we're going with these prosecutions,
James O'Keefe,
it hits the nail on the head of the hammer, exactly what the Founding Fathers talked about when they talked about being innocent until proven guilty. If a society tells you that no matter how good of a person you are, they will lock you up and punish you, then there is no incentive to be good. So what we see with things like this is lawlessness and narco-tyranny. People are looting these stores, mass raids, and they get away with it. You defend yourself, you go to prison. That guy in New York who was being attacked and then stabbed the guy and went to Rikers. And it was only because of public outcry that he got out.
Outrageous.
How many people do you think right now in this country, in these cities, have suffered a similar fate and we just don't know about it? It's an inversion.
There's probably a lot.
And the reason is it's really simple. It is easier for the police to arrest James O'Keefe than it is for them to arrest one random guy looting a Nike store. Why?
Why?
The guy looting the Nike store could have a knife, a gun, and he'll fight. James O'Keefe will open the door, turn around, put his hands behind his back, and let you arrest him. So what are they going to keep doing? Law enforcement will go after low-hanging fruit to hammer everything that looks like a nail. And if there is some politicized charge against any of these Republicans or media personalities, people like James O'Keefe, then they'll do it. And the cops are going to be like, well, this one's easy. And that's it. And then what happens? So Tucker is putting up this video with Trump soon. He asks Trump if he thinks we're headed towards a civil war. I'm really interested to see what Trump says. I imagine Trump's going to say no. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe he says yes, considering what's going on.
He says he doesn't know.
But you got to understand.
This came up before. Trump's response to it was he doesn't know, he hopes not, basically, but there's just so much hate and division that who knows?
If this narco-tyranny persists, eventually the view is DOJ is illegitimate.
Yeah.
And why would anyone think otherwise even right now? Certainly Democrats would agree with it, but that's not what matters. What matters is, do we as a nation agree that our Department of Justice is a legitimate force for justice, or do we believe it is simply a gang run by partisans to torture and oppress their political enemies? I'm pretty sure every Trump supporter believes the latter. And if that's the case, there comes a time when you're, say, a fat 70-year-old dude in Provo, Utah, and they show up at your house with a battering ram, and then they kill you.
Yeah. Well, don't throw on people in his case,
there was just yesterday or the day before was the anniversary of Ruby Ridge.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Yeah, I think yesterday.
But Ruby Ridge is still a little bit different.
It is.
Well, they shot the
firearms charge, and then they tried using it as a justification for a raid. You look at that, and you look at Waco, and that was, they found a bunch of guns or whatever, and then there's controversy over. Those may have been something, there's more to those stories we don't know about, right? It's so simple. Today, we're dealing with something overt and desperate. The Democrats have lost everything. They're losing music. They're losing movies. They're losing culture in general. And in their panic and desperation, they're going for brute force. And that will just shatter what is left of confidence in their legitimacy. Then what happens? I honestly don't know. What happens when we get to the point where they kill that guy in Provo, Utah? There's that woman, that school teacher in Chicago. She was threatening Trump and Barron, and they show up and just arrest her peacefully. To be fair, some frail little woman who's not known to be armed is a big difference. Is very different from a guy posting photos of himself with rifles. And
at least the guy that couldn't walk has guns. Right. We don't know that she had it.
So, but what happens when that Provo, Utah thing kind of expands? What happens when you get 7 guys who don't plot anything ridiculous, aren't talking about going to the governor's mansion or anything like that, but they just say, none of us believe that the DOJ is legitimate. What happens then when the FBI shows up and they've got a car blocking the highway and they say, you turn right around. You got nothing to say here. We got nothing to say to you. Turn around. What happens when people stop respecting the badges of these law enforcement because they're doing things like going
lot of
after
people
Trump
already
and
have.
Trump's lawyers.
Well, to be fair, I mean, you see the increase in crime in cities, and that's because the people that are living in
they
the
don't
cities
respect the badge.
police.
Yep.
You know,
Exactly, that's my point.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean,
It's
you'll
already
see
happened, Tim.
more of this. You'll see more unrest, and then, you know, will citizens take it into their own hands? Because you're seeing more and more where people are sick and tired of it. I don't know that they're gonna. You know, there's that we just saw the dude, I think in Atlanta, where the DA is not going to charge him for smoking the guy that was robbing someone.
Oh, the gas station.
Yeah, the guy that just
No, that was Michigan.
Was it Michigan?
The gas station with the 6-pack, and he shoots the guy.
Yeah, one
That was
hand, and
Michigan.
he doesn't put the beer down. He just pops the dude.
Yep.
Wow.
And see, here's the issue. We went too far in one direction. Maybe. I do think that in many ways we are winning, and I think we're on track to win. I don't know if that's a guarantee. I don't know what's going on. But when you see there's a story out of Michigan where a guy with a boxcar, he's threatening the store, the clerk, some dude who's got a concealed carry just shoots him. And they said, we're not going to prosecute him. He's allowed to do it. He's
He was
self-defense.
also the good guy.
Right.
Yeah, yep.
He was he had previously worked as a security
Good
guard.
DA.
And wow, one
In
hand
that area.
holding a 6-pack, and he.
But I think his DAs control so much. George Soros knows this. I think I read a third of the population has a DA that was funded by George Soros here in Austin. That's how it is. The DA here is just super trash. But yeah, that's how it goes. And the DA, I never realized this until like the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, and then the stuff with Austin and stuff. The one guy, the BLM protester, went up to his car. They were surrounding him in 2020. And the guy was an army sergeant, so this guy points an AK into the back of his window, and he pulls out a gun and shoots him. He's in prison right now. I think Greg Abbott, last time I looked, was working on pardoning him. But yeah, that's who the DA goes after. It's like, how? That's obviously self-defense, and he's going to appeal no matter what and win. It's in Texas. You go to a state court, he'll win self-defense. But that's crazy. He's been in jail for like years for defending himself from a guy who pointed a gun at him. Yeah, the DA is so important. Everyone has to start realizing that. I didn't realize it until like the last year or two, that it's like the DA is one of the most important local positions, you know, because they have way more power than you'd realize, because they choose who gets prosecuted and who doesn't.
This evil criminal. That's the good news is, if we as a society say, we will not prosecute you for defending other people, maybe it's not that these individuals don't fear the police anymore, it's they fear everyone else.
Absolutely. It is 100% a deterrent. If people are armed, if you live in a place where people are armed and you might get shot, that is that deters people.
But what did the police forces weren't even around, just really started popping up like 100 years right after the Revolutionary War, maybe even longer. There was no police. Everyone just had a gun. So that was the deterrent. You go and start shooting people, you're going to get shot. A lot of people say that about not having government. If the government fell, it's just going to be chaos. It's going to be a power vacuum and stuff. And that happens in a lot of countries, but the United States has so many guns. I don't think that'll happen. The guys that try to go get power, they're going to get taken out, and then it goes away. Then the people that are calm and don't want to go and try to get power, they're going to be the ones left.
From trying to commit crimes.
But we live in a super armed society.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it also a high crime?
Because it's extremely hard to carry guns in some places.
This guy.
Most places probably.
Yeah.
I mean,
big cities. Yeah. What is he talking
about? In West
about?
Virginia, they have concealed carry.
Here in Austin, there's Texas is constitutional carry and everything, but then the businesses in Austin, they'll say, no, you can't bring a gun in here. So it's like, what are you talking about? So people just don't carry guns.
I'm sorry.
Oh, and then like I was just saying, the DA is awful here. So if someone aims a gun at you and they're part of both of these guys were white, by the way. They're in a BLM protest. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You shoot them in self-defense, you're going to get prosecuted. This guy, who do they have on? Who is this guy?
Constitutional
carry. Not very smart.
So,
no offense to him.
So long as you have an ID for the state, you can walk into a gun store. You buy a gun, you got to fill out the federal background check form. Wait for that to clear. Usually takes like 10, 15 minutes. It could take days. Then once you take the gun, you can put it in your holster, in your waistband, or in your coat, or whatever you got, and you can walk out. But a lot of states don't have that. And even states that are actually kind of okay, like Texas. I think Texas recently passed constitutional carry, but for a while you could test.
Yeah.
You had to do a course on a handgun training course. Maryland's the same way. For a lot of people, it's not so easy to do. And so the areas where you'd think you would need the weapon, high crime urban areas, are the hardest places to get weapons.
Yep.
And not only that, in places like Chicago, where after it was,
I just said, then businesses also. Businesses, if you're more in a liberal area, they'll just say you can't bring your gun in. And, that's their right under the Constitution. It's unconstitutional for you to say in a state you can't do it, but in business, it's their property. They can do what they want. So, yeah, these people that are like going in and robbing like Macy's or whatever, right? The Macy's is most likely saying you can't bring a gun in here. So it's like they kind of do it to themselves too.
What was the ruling in 2008? I keep forgetting the name.
Not Bruin. Heller?
Heller. Yeah, DC versus Heller. After that, all of a sudden, it's like, okay, Chicago can't stop you from having a handgun, but no building will let you in if you
it's
do.
just saying that. Yeah.
But the more importantly, why is
should be on this
that
podcast.
these criminals don't fear anybody might be armed? Because if you defend yourself, you go to jail. If you try to defend others, you go to jail. Look at, what was the guy's name? Penny in New York?
Yep.
There's a guy in a train threatening to kill everyone on the train. So him and two other guys subdue him. They charged him.
They charged him
with manslaughter, second-degree manslaughter. Then you got the guy in Austin who is driving Uber, and a far-left extremist walks up with a rifle at low ready and aims it. He shoots, going to jail. He got sentenced.
Going to jail. Yes.
That was Perry, I think.
Yeah, and a lot
Perry
of
and Penny is
a lot of anarchists have a problem with it because the dude with the AK was an anarchist, but like they both had guns, so he just lost a gunfight.
Dude, you can't be part of a mob.
Yeah, you can't.
And walk up to a guy in his vehicle.
Yeah.
With a weapon at low ready, with you holding it up. You just can't do that, man.
If you're
hands off the weapon. Thanks for watching this clip from Tim.
Exactly. Hands off the weapon. Otherwise, you're getting killed. Yeah, this is just crazy. James O'Keefe's getting investigated. Donald Trump's getting investigated. They're using the law so much against everybody. It really is just like if you, what's legal and what isn't is just up to the people that enforce it. So that's how it goes. It's crazy. Even if it's legal, what they do, if you get a jury to, and a lot of these judges, they'll tell the juries that it doesn't matter. They'll be like, oh yeah, they'll lie. They'll be like, well, if you think it should have been illegal, what case was that? I don't remember. I can't remember. But they were like, oh, but I know it's not illegal, but they told the jury, if you think it should be illegal though, then we can, oh yeah, it was Erwin Schiff. It was like a tax thing. And he told the jury, it's just like, yeah, no, technically he's right, but if you think it should be illegal, then it's illegal. And he died in prison working on his appeal. It's from skin cancer, and they want to give him treatment. Very, very if you've ever heard of Peter Schiff, it was his dad, Erwin Schiff. He ran for ran for the presidency for the Libertarian Party in 2000. Crazy, crazy, crazy story. But yeah, so judges would just go lie and just get the juries to get the decision that they want, and they'll just do the same. With the James O'Keefe thing, here we are, Trump. It's like it's wild. But in voting for the right DA is extremely important. Really, local politics in general for that type of stuff, very important. And I think people are really starting to wake up to that. So that's pretty awesome. It's refreshing. I think the way that they're using the law to go after people, hopefully it's the peak, and it does seem like it might be like that. Like people are voting for Republican more and more. People are abandoning the left. People are trying to be more lawful. They're sick of their stores getting shut down in California because there's so much looting that they can't afford to keep them open. So yeah, I think the pendulum is really swinging the other way. But for right now, yeah, it's a really stressful time and hard time for the country. But yeah, I think I'll leave it there. We got one more story here. Jordan Peterson explodes in response to his court case to re-educate him. So yeah, basically he lost this court case. Just to set this up, he lost this court case that said he needs to go into this re-education thing to teach him how to tweet better. Otherwise, he'll lose his license to be a therapist. Psychologist, therapist, it's all the same, right? Yeah, so then he went to appeal it, and they threw out his appeal. They won't let him do it. Here's a clip.
Jordan B. Peterson has finally now responded and with quite some fury, I might add.
Yeah,
to
rightfully
the
so.
Denial of his appeal to be re-educated by the Canadian government to teach him how to tweet and not offend people.
Yeah, the
if
government
he wants to keep his license.
should
as
be
a
telling people
psychologist.
this stuff, right?
However,
insane.
It's more of an ideological fight for him, I believe, because he doesn't really practice anymore. He doesn't really teach at that school anymore. He's a huge, super huge megastar. When I saw him yesterday,
there's millions
at
of subs
the
on
RNC
YouTube.
debates, it was like he was a rock star. There was a massive group of people around him trying to get selfies, trying to get autographs, trying to get pictures. I'm
the
talking
government,
maybe 100.
It backfired on the government. They made him such a big star because they were doing this type of stuff. So
people, the second people noticed him, people were running across the entire Fiserv Forum to try and get a picture with him. The guy is a super huge megastar, loved by young and old. And by the way, most of the people that were running over there were young kids, maybe in their 20s or something like that, early 20s. But yesterday, there was a terrible loss for free speech, as he is now being, again, forced to be re-educated.
Yeah,
now,
lose
Jordan
his
Peterson
license.
unloads on Canadian court after backs psychologist organization's attempt to censor him. A Canadian court has upheld the sanctioning of Dr. Jordan Peterson by a psychologist governing body that targeted Peterson for criticizing trans ideology, climate alarmism, and the Canadian government. The College of
Can't do that in
Psychologists
Canada.
of Ontario, which has embraced radical gender theory in recent years, has threatened to.
I had some friends that joked like, "Oh, if Biden gets elected again, I'm moving to Canada." I'm like, "Canada? Do you know what Canada's like?" They're like, "Oh, no, not really." It's like, "Oh, well, let me tell you, like, you don't want to move to Canada. That is for damn sure."
To remove Peterson's clinical psychology license over his social media activity if he doesn't go through a so-called specified continuing educational or remedial program. Again,
Corrupt.
that's
so corrupt.
Re-education. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I mean, that's what it is. On Wednesday, the Ontario Superior Court of Justice ordered Peterson to pay $25,000 to the College of Psychologists and upheld the order he go through a social media education program. The organization is not punishing Peterson for any interactions with patients. Rather, it's censuring, fining, and attempting to re-educate him for public comments he made, including on social media and during podcast appearances.
$25K.
It's his literal free speech.
Wow.
Peterson responded by blasting the court and vowing to make every aspect of the case public.
Oh, yeah,
which
go
I think
do it.
would be, you know, when I went to talk to him, excuse me, that's what I wanted to, you know, reinforce of how important it is. He knows how important it is, but I think that it is a absolute Chad move because they don't want this getting out public. They don't want their weirdo reprogramming stuff to be public because the whole world will see it.
Oh yeah, he goes
exactly
and does
what
that.
It's all about.
He does the re-education, but then films all of it. Oh, that would be dope. Just go do it, Jordan. Let's go.
Some of Peterson's supposed offenses, by the way, according to the College of Psychologists, include retweeting Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre's, sorry if I mispronounced that, criticism of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Criticizing a leader has led to re-education. Not just
Canada
him saying it,
sucks.
but just simply the crime of
No offense to
retweeting
any
it.
Canadians up there, but if you live in
Criticizing
Canada,
a
it's
former
like
senior Trudeau aide,
you know it
and
sucks.
expressing opposition to the idea of the Ottawa police taking custody of children of trucker convoy protesters.
Wow.
Other supposed offenses do not involve direct criticism of the Canadian government, such as Peterson saying on Joe Rogan's podcast that accepting radical gender theory is a sign of civilization collapsing, calling climate change models unreliable, and criticizing Sports Illustrated for putting a overweight swimsuit model on the cover. Sorry,
Gross.
plus sized.
How is that a sport?
All
sports
reasonable
person?
takes. You know, if you want to put somebody who's obese on the cover of the swimsuit edition, that's fine. You're just telling me that you're not trying to sell copies of the swimsuit edition. You
Yeah,
want to get press about
Sports
it. It's
Illustrated.
more profitable to get the press than it is
Should
to
be
actually
people that
sell
play
the product,
sports, no?
which is a lot. You know, which would explain a lot of the woke capitalism that we see. In the latest ruling, the court ruled that Peterson's application to block the forced training, claiming that the College of Psychologists had a compelling public interest in regulating Peterson's statements, or otherwise known as free speech. I've concluded that the application should be dismissed. In my view, the decision of the ICRC are reasonably consider Dr. Peterson's statements in the context of the college's statutory mandate to regulate in profession in public interest, wrote Judge Paul Shabbos. Now, on Tuesday, prior to the release of the decision, Peterson wrote on X that he stood by his comments. Well, if we go and we see this video he put out last night, by the way, this is the suit he was wearing last night. So I think he recorded this in his hotel.
Yeah, it seems that
Hello,
way.
everyone. I've been awaiting a court decision in Canada with regards to the Ontario College of Psychologists' decision to require me to be re-educated in relationship to my social media use or to lose my license. The court ruled today in favor of the college. They claimed that I have the right to free speech in Canada, but subject to apparently whatever limitations the college wants to place on me, and by implication, every other professional in Canada.
And that's why this is such a big deal. First of all, he doesn't have free speech.
No, he definitely not.
Are allowed to take away his livelihood, take away his job, take away.
They didn't even say anything that
his
crazy.
Credentials, because he himself
criticized a leader and doesn't agree with transgender stuff. I'm like, that's not like really that crazy. He's not saying it like anything that crazy. Let's just leave it there.
Shared an opinion that they did not like. Now, a lot of people out there like to use the freedom of speech, but not freedom of consequences. And I understand that that can be a thing. For example, if you work for, I don't know, Walmart or something, and you have it in your Twitter bio, and you're using your Twitter bio to release secrets or damaging information about Walmart, for example, they're likely to fire you.
That's not a good idea. They're going to fire you.
They might even sue you.
Yeah.
And the way our American legal system works, they might even win. But
which they probably should, yeah.
That's some statements that you're making more directly tied to a business that maybe they could directly tie to some sort of negative backlash. You know, Alyssa Heinerschneid at Bud Light calling, their advertisement and by extension their existing customer base at the time fratty and out of touch would be an example of somebody who was speaking for the company, had the right to say what they wanted to say, and subsequently has been put on leave because she cost the company $30 billion in market cap. Now,
wow. So
I don't
crazy
know
to think about that perspective.
How much
billion, one person.
I agree with all these decisions, but at least you can kind of track it that way. With Jordan Peterson, they are trying to humiliate him. They are trying to discredit him. His tweets on there is no reasonable amount of people that views Jordan Peterson as a surrogate for the college. He does not have that in his biography. His Twitter bio just says he's a clinical psychologist, education podcast, best-selling author. He doesn't list the school. He doesn't list, the particular oversight committee for psychologists. His comments weren't on psychology even. In some cases, I suppose you could argue they were indirectly. But
I think you could argue
I think
they
that
were.
To make that connection to where they're saying, well, your free speech, you do have freedom of speech,
who
but
cares?
your speech is
You
harming
can have
your business.
independent opinions
I don't
still.
believe they've made that connection, and I don't think they can make that connection. This is more almost exclusively about humiliating him and discrediting him.
And by implication, every other citizen of Canada. The full response to that, my full response to that, or my full initial response, to be more accurate, we'll release that tomorrow. So stay tuned, and I hope you find it useful and interesting.
And so, I think that when you look at how this affects, everybody else, I also think he doesn't run his own social media, because you can see, do you think psychologist Jordan Peterson should be forced to undergo social media training? This with lots of replies. That would be a hard no. People on the, on the left have absolutely been celebrating this, have been, viewing this attack on his freedom of speech and things of that nature as a win. It's ridiculous, right? And so I think the fact that he's going to release everything out, he's going to fight it, I think that is a very good thing, and I think that he says, so the Ontario court ruled that they can pursue the prosecution. If you think that you have a right to free speech in Canada, you're delusional. I will make every aspect public, and we will see what happens with the utter transparency. Bring it on. In keeping with the transparency, here's the decision. The courts have captured by woke ideologies. I knew this already, but I didn't fully understand its extent. Elon Musk gets involved. He said, this is worse than you think, Elon. My tweets criticizing the trans ideology and Justin Trudeau are the punitive reason. The judges are progressives appointed by Justin Trudeau. And all professionals in Canada are so terrified of their professional regulatory bodies that they are terrified into silence. And even those who aren't intimidated in that manner can't afford the extremely expensive and endless fight. Not good. This is why, why his fighting this is so important. Because he has the means to, take a lengthy court battle on. He has the money, the professionals, the clout, the reach to do it. And so he, unfortunately, has to be the one that has to do it. John Q. Public doesn't have access to the lawyers and all this kind of stuff. The Epic Times saying, court of rules against, Swipe Right was here. Colin Wright, the Ontario court rulings against psychologists can pursue their prosecution against Jordan Peterson is an absolute joke. They're sending a very clear signal to anyone thinking about speaking their minds. We will destroy your career. It's going to be interesting to see, what their exact method here, their fight back will be, but good for him. Chris Christie is a tough guy. Wait, what? Oh, maybe we should have him evaluate. Just kidding. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I wish Jordan the best of luck.
He just changes his mind. He likes Chris Christie. No.
Takes it to him.
I agree. This is just crazy talk. This is how it goes. Like he was saying, the judge is like a progressive, and that's what, and he gets appointed by Trudeau. That's what's happening with Joe Biden, with Hunter and everything. Well, he appointed you at the DOJ. If you go against Joe Biden and prosecute Hunter, it's going to ruin your career. It's career suicide, they were told. It's the same type of thing. The government it's just, government is not as good as people think it is. And it's just always this type of thing. They go and I always think that. It's like if you get someone in power and then they appoint everybody that now they're in power, but the other person supersedes their power, so they're scared. Even if they want to do it like morally, they're not going to get the job. They're going to get fired. It's going to ruin their career, and they work really hard for that, and they want to give their family good stuff and everything. So even people that want to be principled, the fight's against them, And then Jordan Peterson, just the stuff he said again, it wasn't like violent or anything. It was just general opinions. Like, who cares? Climate alarmism. Oh no, you need to get re-educated. It's bad. The stuff you say on Joe Rogan, you're not allowed to say that. It's like I can't have an opinion as a psychologist. Is it this type of stuff supposed to be opinion based? No. People ruin people's careers all the time. I was just watching this guy on on PBD recently. Pat Bit David, I think his name is. I always get the middle part wrong. Pat Bit David, but he was on there talking about this thing. I forget the name. Is a really interesting name, but it's like interstellar. It's like this flat object that's spinning. And in 2017, he wanted to know what it was. And then it was fine. And then people got the wrong idea. And then they just started ousting him. And he was confused. Like, wait. Isn't the scientific community supposed to want to be open to these ideas? And no. It's a mainstream. They want to get funding. It all comes back to money every single time, doesn't it? So this is about what these guys are thinking. this psychologist board also. They're like, no, it's gonna get we're gonna get fired, and we're not gonna get money. No, you can't be saying this stuff. And now you're really famous, and you're going on Joe Rogan. Can you just stop? He's like, no, I'm not gonna stop. And then they're like, okay, fine, we're taking your license. You either go to this thing, we re-educate you, or you're gonna lose your license. And that's how it goes. It's insane. But I'll leave it that right there, I think. Yeah, what a crazy podcast today, though. This was fun. Almost 3 hours covering the Trump thing. Yeah, with Trump, all the witch hunt and everything. It's really unfortunate because the scene switching, I actually got it working. I spent a lot of time today getting the scene switching working, and it worked flawlessly. And then I restarted OBS, and then it broke again. I don't know if it's because I'm streaming and recording at the same time. That could have something to do with it, but I'll do some more testing tonight, and hopefully I get this all. It's not that big of a deal, but you probably want to like more like this, like what actually have it working, right? Not like the nonsense that happens when it like goes and glitches and throws me out and then pops back in. It's like, what's the point of even having this plugin if it's doing that, But hopefully I can get it working. In the long run, I guess I'll get a new computer. This computer's getting kind of old, so maybe that's the solution. But definitely can't do that right now. But hopefully I can just solve it another way, or I'll talk to the plugin maker and stuff. Then we'll get this quality better. I'm actually liking the mic, how it's sounding now. Still gonna get that SM7B as soon as possible, but I'm pretty happy with this. But yeah, I think I'll leave it there. Definitely thank you so much for watching this entire podcast. Definitely appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow. Again, I was really late today, but that was a lot because of the Trump thing at 7:30. So I was just, okay, I'm going to mess with my settings and everything and try to get that working more. And then, I'll just stream the Trump thing live, which, yeah, I think that's a good idea. But yeah, I'll try to be back at noon tomorrow. Like I said, the next until I get everything dialed in, I don't know if I'll be able to hit that noon goal, but eventually I will once I'm not having to mess with OBS and everything like that and plugins, trying to get that all to work. Oh, and then I even got started a little later than I wanted to because my browser that I had set up, like you guys saw earlier, I didn't have the audio set up, and I'm like, wait, is it just automatically set up with audio? Because I haven't tried to use audio before on it. I've just used websites, and I went and tested it right before I started streaming, and it's like, oh, the audio is not working. How do I get this to work? So I'm just about to start. I'm like, oh, God, I got to figure this out. The event was already started and, yeah, set up. That's like, oh, no. Oh, no. So, yeah, it is what it is, though. Getting better every single day. But, yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I definitely appreciate it again. And I'm not sure what the time is, but, I'll definitely catch you tomorrow. All right. Peace out.